Is that?
I think you did it.
I had gray hairs because I'm 19.
This is the Board of Education regular business meeting for which adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Law was provided by written notice on April 26, 2007 to the Courier News, the Sentinel, the Reporter, the Star Ledger, the Clerks and Borough of Watchung, the Townships, Long Hill, and Warren.
She's gotten so nice to me. She said you and her that wasn't Michelle.
Guys, can you take a roll call, please?
Mr. Binder? Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzerano?
Yes.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz? Here. Mr. Pepe? Mrs. Mandel? Mr. Sun? Dr. Yagat?
Here.
Dr. Seelig?
Here.
No Lou today?
I'm sorry?
We have 6, right?
We have 6. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
We're good.
Pledge allegiance.
The earlier meeting.
Back behind us to our left.
I went back.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pledge of Allegiance was created because of the Chicago World's Fair.
Dr. Stromsen will not be here with us tonight, so we'll bypass the superintendent's comments. She has a personal matter that she has to deal with. I don't expect her to be out of the district. She may be out tomorrow, but probably not. I don't have a lot to say. The first thing I would say is that we have a board member who's been appointed to another commission, and I just want to congratulate him on his appointment. Showed up in the newspaper. Congratulations, your appointment, Mr. Horowitz, for the Parks Commission. I was reading up it on the newspaper, and good luck.
Thank you. I'll need it.
In your packet, I'm not sure when it came out, this time or last time, we have headed to the school board's meeting in October rather. We can save some money if we withdraw any use of hotels and things like that before the 31st of August. So if you get your vote in and to Irene quickly to let her know when we'll, if you'll be down there, what days you'll be down there, I'd appreciate it. Tonight, as usual, we're trying to keep our remarks, making a very concerted effort to end our meeting by 10:30 if that's at all feasible. I know there's a lot on the agenda. I'd appreciate it if board members and public would keep their comments concise, brief, focused on the topic at hand. With that, I'll move on to our business administrator's comments. For those of you who have not met him, this is our new business administrator. He's been in a few meetings in the past, and he was officially appointed at the last one. This is his first official meeting. So, Mr. Size.
Also, Paul, old business administrator too.
We also have our old business manager who's helping us bridge some of the time frame here. Right, but we all knew him. Tim.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have too many comments other than the fact that I am getting my feet wet. There's a lot to learn, obviously, in a place like this and this complex. It's a wonderful start so far. Everyone's been very accommodating, very helpful, and I will have more to say in the months to come. We are getting ready to get the school prepared for the beginning of the school year. I do have one thing that Dr. Stromsen gave me about possible dates for September board meetings that she wanted me to pass around. So I'm going to pass this around. It has September and October calendars. So if you could please put down 3 or 4 dates that are good for possible September board meetings.
Okay, passing that way and this way. I have some
right
here also. And when we have this as a discussion item and board discussion, if we can just take a quick look at those dates, then we can
Sorry.
see what we're going to do with those once you pass those out.
I think what you need to do is, if you look at the it has a calendar, and what you do is you place your, you put your dates that are good for you in that section.
Brian, did I give you the calendar part?
No.
Did you guys get something in your packet? Did she give you?
About what? This.
Dates?
The possible dates for September.
I think
Do you
so.
have the calendar part? I think we're short one calendar, am I right? We have 3 of this, and that's all right. We can deal with it, don't worry about it. Don't look.
Okay. We'll talk about that before discussion.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Dr. Yancey?
Our B&G have worked tremendously hard this summer to get the building ready for the opening of students on Thursday, September 6th. And they've been painting classrooms. Every classroom has been painted. They have been painting the hallways, the South Auditorium, and just in general getting the building ready to open. And for the first time in 4 years, they've been doing this without wires hanging down from the ceilings and without books all over the place. And we'll be ready to open in large measure thanks to their good work. Our supervisors have also been working very hard in terms of hiring for the school year, in terms of getting the schedule in order with Ms. Gannon and Mr. DeLessio, in terms of getting the rooms in order for their teachers, in terms of getting the books where they should be getting to. So they've been working hard, and an occasional vacation now and then. And we're just ready for the kids. Thank you.
Anything else? Committee reports. Finance and operations this time, personnel, buildings and grounds, and curriculum. Did anybody else meet? Any other committees?
Yes, the 50th anniversary
Okay, we'll do that.
celebration.
We'll do that at the end, okay, so if we have time. I talked with Fran about the possibility of moving that to the next meeting also.
It's really quite okay because I'm going to distribute something, so I don't even have to give a verbal. I'll just highlight it, but just so people will know what we're up to, and I have enough copies on that, so that won't take any time to do.
All right, with that, Rob, you want to kick off the
Yeah.
finance and operations?
Thanks, Paul. Tim, Jerry, Fran, and myself met last week. A couple of items on our agenda. I know Tim will go into some of them tonight with some special appropriations for cafeteria, seating, and things like that. But 4 items I just want to spend a brief amount of time on, and the one that's sort of the most compelling is the cafeteria. It's really been a source of, to me personally, frustration, and I think for a lot of us on the board, and Bob, it's been frustrating, and Tim, I think it's going to be frustrating to you. There's in the packet tonight, I think, is it for $40,000 an appropriation, Tim, to cover this deficit? Isn't there appropriate? Isn't there?
There is 40 plus. Actually, that's plus 87 for the chairs and things. So it's.
But not for the cafeteria shortfall is about 40,000. Isn't there?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. I don't know the genesis of the problem, but in a nutshell, here are the problems. Aside from the fact that there's a shortfall, the cafeteria operations are about $500 and something thousand last year. One of the problems, if you look at the numbers, approximately 50% of the costs associated with the operation of the cafeteria are derived from food. 50% is an incredibly high cost of food to gross revenues. In most food operations, that probably would run from 25 to 35%. So just to give you an idea, if our cost of food were at 35%, that extra 15% would have an impact of about $70,000 or so, which would be more than enough to cover the $40,000 or so shortfall, and you'd end up having a surplus. One of the things that we really need to focus on, I think, Tim, sooner than later, number one is, because I don't think any of us wants to see a $40,000, $50,000 subsidy of these operations next year. Number one, the feasibility of increasing prices about 10%, okay, which would, theoretically, $500,000 of food sale, 10% increase, not counting whatever food cost increase, because there could be a food cost increase also this year would just about cover it. And of course, that assumption is there'll be no drop-off in purchases. Number two, and I think this is a really important issue, we need to sit down, and maybe the Finance Committee, Tim, we could do this with Pontonian, really have to look at the food mix. When you have a 50% food cost ratio, one of two things. Your prices aren't high enough, you have food waste, spoilage, theft, possibilities. So something is very problematic here. So one of the, as I said, looking at increases. Number two, with the nature of the food we're preparing, I don't know if every day preparing hot foods, whether there's a lot of waste there, the cost of preparing that, as compared, and this might tie in, next year, Tom, how long are the school lunch periods going to be next year?
25 minutes.
25 minutes. So think of it also in a sense of practicality when a whole bunch of kids are streaming through the cafeteria, waiting to be served hot foods, whatever the hot foods are, as compared to more foods, variety of sandwiches, salads that can be prepared, and the kids can, grab it, boom, with the, hopefully, Tom, we were talking about that pay card in back to school night, also back to school night when parents start showing up, to have a kiosk set up where the parents, can buy those food cards for their kids. So to move along the line. Number two, at the end of the day, if the sandwiches or the pre-made salads don't sell, they can go back in the refrigerator. The shelf life's a little longer. And the third implication, perhaps could be, and Pontonian has to speak to this, is we might very well need less people for preparing less hot food items every day. Okay, if the value proposition holds, we might very well not need to have as many.
This should be a committee.
Well,
this is a deep
no,
study.
I understand, but the reason, Sandy, I want to spend a moment or two on it, is that we're at a point now. We need to move really quickly with Pontonian before the school year begins to see about making some of these. I want to bring you up to speed on this, okay? So that we just can't keep subsidizing $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 losses. Number two, Tim's going to take a look at, with Lou, myself, and Tom, we walked through with vending machines. We think there's a potential additional revenue source north of $50,000 a year to the school. Now, there's also limitations imposed on schools with serving non-sugar or sugared beverages, which are the primary ingredient. But I think in seeing and knowing, at least with a lot of the kids that I've known in the past, water, some of the Powerade drinks and things like that, which can obviously be placed in these vending machines, especially at the lower fields, the athletic fields where kids are, practicing track, soccer, whatever. They can buy some of these waters. So with Tim, we're going to be looking at that, and also vandal-proof type of arrangements with gates, enclosures and things like that. We're trying to move on that quickly. It could be, as I said, north of $50,000 a year. Thirdly, Tim and I, and Jerry was there at the meeting also, discussed the idea of potentially scrubbing the budget in increments of $250,000. Just whether or not we have to make use of these funds, we're not sure. We have to be in a position ready to see what expenditures potentially could be curtailed, given the fact of the litigation with the construction and some other matters, which are going to really put some tension on on the budget this year. The other matter that we want to take a look at, and Tim, we spoke to him about this, is some funding, some revenue sources for particularly some other matters, but also for the sound system in the auditorium, in the theater. I think we'd all agree we have this magnificent venue, and if we're hoping to make some revenues and to make it into a Class 1 facility, the sound system that there's now is lacking, and the fix, which is really a temporary fix of renting sound equipment on a as-needed basis, is wholly insufficient. And there were some other matters which maybe privately we can go into as well. But that sort of rounds out some of the areas.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Robert.
Sure.
Personnel, Sandy, Jerry's not here.
Jerry's not here, and Jerry, summertime is hard to get people out, as we all know, and it was just Jerry and me and administration people. I was just given Jerry's report, so if you'll just bear with me, I'll try to summarize his report. First, we talked about the chief school, the evaluation of the superintendent. And we're working on the policies and making sure that the goals are completed so that we will be able to evaluate on the basis of goals, which is what the policy says you have to do. Now, we're also looking at our district hiring and evaluation policies. They're relevant policies, and the district is consulting with other districts to see what best practices exist on particularly evaluation. Then we have currently we have one opening as a clerical position. The administration is still discussing how to use it, and as Tim has come aboard and becomes more familiar, he will make the needs known. So we will see how and whom and what kind of person we need to fill that opening. We're also talking about a replacement of a tech coordinator with a possible coordination with a tech position, because there is a budgeted opening position for a tech coordinator. However, there's also a need for a facilities supervisor, which is unbudgeted, and that need may be even stronger than the other at the moment. So we're going to have to see whether we can do a shared service perhaps with tech coordinator, but we'll see how strong our need is in terms of the facilities supervisor. We need an additional instructional aid, and that's going to be expanded to the job coaching position. Of course, these are this money will come from the IDEA funding, which is our special ed. And then we go back to performing arts. We're new in that area, and we're excited about it, and we're hoping to keep it growing. So we're looking to reach out into the community about a person to help with expanding the use of the Performing Arts Center. This will be ongoing for a number of years until community, because people don't even know that the building has a theater that will be open for use on a rental basis. So we'll see what happens. Did I make that quick enough, Paul?
Great.
Yes, there you go.
Cindy, could you just go back to the tech coordinator? I mean, what is it we're saying? Are we replacing Tom, or are we
Well,
looking
that's
to
the discussion,
try and
right?
replace with something less than he had?
Right now, we have less than Tom, and
And we're not actively looking to fill
no,
that
not
position?
actively, no. That's budgeted, but right now, the discussion is we are also down a facilities supervisor, and that may have to take precedent over the replacement of Tom if we have people who are doing the job. And that, of course, we're going to have to find out from people who are up here working.
Okay, I would hope we would have a discussion at the board level before we decide not to replace the technology coordinator.
It's not that there's not a want, it's a matter of need and dollars. You know, you balance that out again.
And you're right, and that's a discussion that the board has to balance out the need and the dollars. That's why I'm asking for a discussion.
Well, these are not on the agenda. These are
Right.
just reports of the committee at the moment.
Okay. Next one on the list is negotiations.
No, we didn't.
We're on the buildings and grounds. Lou's not here. Jerry's not here. I was at the meeting also, which means the people there will be in Tim. I said I would cover the meeting for Lou. There's about 12 items on the list that we're running through right now. Just trying to keep track of the construction. Tim, if I make a mistake here or error, please correct me.
I'll try.
The DCA, I believe they were here today, but they have been on site a couple of times doing site reviewing items for closeout with Don Fiore. Emergency and exit lighting inspections for the south building are scheduled for Friday the 17th, which happened last week, I believe.
That's right.
Alternate 6 has, which is the lab, 7172, has some paperwork issues that are still being pursued by Don at this point in time.
They were here today.
They were here today?
Yeah, we do have some items that need to be done, and there's a completion of inspections scheduled for the 23rd.
Completion of inspections. Okay, great. The south building alarm and electrical point list was received by Don. This is very important for us, and we can now schedule inspection for those areas. As you may have noticed, we have temporary carpeting on parts of the lobby floor out in the front. That's because the tiles are coming loose. We've hired our lawyer has hired a consultant, floor consultant, who come out, and the person was out, they did core samples and an inspection to try to determine the cause of the failure. HVAC continues to be a problem. It has a lot to do with getting subs back on site to complete their electrical work. We've provided them with notices that if they don't respond, we will be proceeding with the necessary steps to finish the work ourselves. So let me finish there. There's a leak in the fire hydrant line or in other sources up in the front of the building, in case you are not aware of them. It would be in the north. It would be in the southwest corner of the building. We are handling. We're looking at contractors will come out and help us locate that leak. The question is in part whether or not it's in the fire line or whether or not it is groundwater. So we're trying in the process trying to determine what is causing that at this point in time. The pit lift, we had some engineering work that had to be done in the form of calculations and paperwork. That's moving forward. We don't expect to get the calculations that are necessary for DCA to grant approval of the pit lift in the floor position and in the stage level position until the first week of September, and then we expect it to take 2 to 3 weeks for that to for final approval for the DCA if they find it acceptable. In the meantime, we're pursuing a path for stabilizing the pit lift at the floor level and getting DCA to agree to that so that we can use it at least through the September timeframe at the floor level. None of what I'm talking about addresses the pit lift going into the lowered position at this point in time. There still is an egress problem in that area.
Paul, it also, I think also, regardless of the egress, egress, you know, if at the lowest level, apparently, regardless, the DCA is not going to permit us to have any students, faculty, anyone on that lift as it's being raised and lowered regardless. Is that, Bob? Isn't that pretty much?
I think that's correct.
I think that's as was stated, as has been talked about. I doubt that they'll change that position, but I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, once it gets lowered into the bottom position, somehow you have to be able to get into it and out of it in a safe manner. And since they can't be on it, I don't think we're going to ask them to jump into the pit.
Maybe we put some mats in it, you know?
Yeah, we just have them do forward rolls into it. There's a roof drain issue. As some of you were aware, the roof drain in the front, near the front entranceway, near the wood gym over there, that was intended to drain out underneath the tile floor area, was blocked during the construction. That was rerouted through a temporary design. And we're now submitting a more formalized design to the DCA to get their approval so we can finish that up, and then we'll have a final drain approach for that roof drain which had been blocked. With regard to the TV studio, we submitted a plan to the DCA that has to do with getting them to accept their approach and understanding our potential use for there's a hallway that is part of that digital corridor over there, that whole video TV studio area. We're talking with the DCA about what their expectations are with regard to fire rating on that, and we've submitted a plan to them. I don't know if we've heard back from them yet on that.
No, not yet.
Perhaps next time we'll hear. Until we get approval from them for that corridor, we cannot occupy that space. And so we're hoping we get that shortly. Fire door replacements. The fire doors are the doors that separate the buildings. Many of you are aware of them. Some of them were put up last year, and we've had problems with them staying up because of the material of construction, as well as the usage of those doors. We've undertaken work to remedy that problem, and electrical work has been completed. Our staff and the doors will be arriving shortly, which will allow us then to install new doors, and we hope then to also have them installed the door release mechanisms so that the doors can be kept open. And then we'll have those then tied into a fire alarm system if we can get everything finished at that time, so that in case of fire, the doors would automatically swing shut. Part of the problem with those doors is they're all in high traffic areas. Kids being kids, they go through the doors, they slam them open, the doors get banged around pretty heavily, and the doors are getting knocked off their hinges. That was due to two reasons. One is the kids going through the doors a lot of times, but then also through the issues associated with the material and construction of those original doors. So, last, Tim, do we have resolutions on these items that define the fire hydrant? No, did we?
No, we do not, and I know that Russ has been working with the architect to move forward. We got the proper notices out in place. I don't know if this is it's below the bid at the moment, but right now I don't know.
So we may not need a resolution on that.
Yeah, we don't have a resolution tonight.
Okay, how about for the HVAC systems, do the general maintenance that we talked about, you know, the alarm company coming in to hire?
We don't have a resolution on the table for that.
Okay. All right, so that is then the end of the construction report. The Buildings and Grounds Committee meets weekly or bi-weekly. We go through all these items every
At least
2
bi-weekly,
weeks.
yeah.
I think each of you received in your board packet also a report that had been published by Don Fiore that gave also additional detail on the construction. Okay.
Paul? I don't know, I thought it might have been in the packet, there was also mentioned, but since you just finished the whole thing on the construction, I mean, is there, I certainly feel we need, there's been a long hiatus, you know, Bernie, to the point where we've had Gary come in and devoting a special session to what the heck's going on with construction. Are we at a point that, we feel
Fran
that...
had recommended that.
I know, I saw it somewhere that everyone, a feeling of scheduling a meeting, special meeting just to talk about that?
We were going to suggest scheduling it for September the 5th, and this was part of the discussion we had with them.
Okay.
We were going to go with discussion.
Because we can't always get everybody to the meetings. Instead of waiting for the meeting, couldn't we just have like a monthly status update that would make sure everybody got the information? I mean, we've had
It's really not one or the other, Bernie, right?
We've had very few meetings all year about this, but a monthly status would be a better way to do it in my mind.
Well, I understand the distinction between a monthly status and what I just went through.
No, I'm sorry. Instead of having Gary come,
You know, excuse
can't we
me,
just...
but is that not the lightning warning? Does
No,
it-
it's my new cell phone is vibrating. Sorry, I don't know how to work it that well, but that's the vibration you're hearing.
Is that your cell
I
phone?
thought we should all go under the table.
It's vibrating on the table.
I don't know how to work it yet. That's a good one.
This is our high-tech member, people.
So I'm sorry, what's the difference?
So
between that?
all I'm saying is that,
Have Gary come in and do a monthly update at the board meeting?
no,
That's
instead of
not
trying
possible.
to schedule a future meeting, just give us an update.
Yeah, Bernie,
Quick update.
there's
A
some,
letter like Tony
I mean, I don't think it's one or the other. I think Paul did just now, and having, I mean, I feel that, I mean, it's been a long time since, we've, devoted a couple hours to, bringing Gary in and going over punch lists,
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that rather than waiting for a meeting, which sometimes we can't get everybody together, supplement it.
We're going to have, I'm going to propose we go ahead and have a meeting, and we'll try to do as soon as we can, where Gary can really have 1 to 2 hours of devoted time to this topic. There are issues that we need to cover in that meeting, which I'd actually rather discuss in executive session than discuss here. Okay, so I think it's important. We can go forward. We'll attempt to schedule that as soon as we can. Can we go on to curriculum then?
Yes, I was there too, and as was Laura. I think we were the only two who made that meeting too. Yeah. Summertime is tough to get us out, I see that. 3 items that came up on the agenda. One was a physical education grading proposal, which was brought up for a future study. We are now in a pass-fail, and we're just batting around if this is the best way to help our students, but we're not sure which way we're going to go. There are lots of pros and lots of cons, and we really have to discuss that one in a lot more depth. The other one that we discussed was opting out for grade 9 students, again, on physical ed. Mario, you are here. Yeah, okay, it was all your department we were busy with. We felt that our grade 9 freshman students really should get a basic foundation of phys ed, that they should not be opting out. They should learn the importance of physical exercise. They should know what our offerings are. They should get their feet wet in this school, their health program. It's a rather complete and complex program from my understanding of what we have. So we would like to recommend that we don't. It's not on the agenda, but this is what came up at a curriculum committee meeting. Nothing is really final yet. And the rest of our discussion, you will be hearing from Michael DeLessio again. We're on grade point average again. For people who love math, he's here to help you tonight. And Linda was there too, as guidance person, because grade point average, guidance, college, going on the rest of your life. We only get our kids for a short 4-year period, and we have to give them all we've got to help them go on the rest of their life. So that's where I am. If you have no other committees, may I at least distribute? The really active committee here is our 50th anniversary.
Right.
Here is, I'm going to pass it.
1 second. We're going to, item J, which is a 50th anniversary update, is what Sandy's going to go through right now, real quickly, just as a committee.
Real quickly, I'm good at talking fast
bring
if
that
you haven't
forward.
noticed.
You got
Okay,
it.
there's a wonderful
2 minutes.
committee, large, well-represented faculty, ex-faculty, retired faculty, people, just people. And I'm going to pass this around because this is like our minutes of everything that we're planning to do for the year. They're stapled together. But the major one that I really want to talk and remind you about tonight is Beatlemania, which is being brought to us through our foundation, our Watchung Hills Foundation for athletics, which was probably, they're talking about expanding it into the arts as well as athletics, which pleases me no end. But I would urge all of us, everyone gets a little sheet, oh, Beatlemania, and it goes somewhere over here. And if we don't get a little personal thrust in and call up those neighbors and those friends and tell them who they are, they're really Broadway people. They've been in 50 states in our country. For those of you who are remembering the Beatles, I think it's going to be quite a performance. It's in our theater. There's an afternoon matinee. I'm going to be there with all the grandchildren. There's an evening performance. Afternoon, it's $25 and $35. Evening, it's $35 and $45, depending on the seating, reserve seating. And I would urge us all to get people. That's 1,000 seats in the afternoon and 1,000 seats in the evening. And that money will all, not all of it, but it will come back. It's being underwritten by the Athletic Foundation. Okay, was I fast enough on that one
Good
too?
enough. Okay.
Were there enough of these? Did it get over to all of you?
Yes, Sandy.
Thank you.
Karen, did you get
Yes, I
one?
got one.
Co-curricular didn't meet, right? Okay. Policy, we did meet, and the result of that is on the agenda. You see 15 policies that you've had a chance. We sent them out in early August, and they were also part of this agenda also. We sent them out for your review and comment on it.
Is this first or second?
This is all first reading, as far as I'm aware of. And that's what it says in the agenda. Community and business, anything, Laura?
We haven't had a formal meeting with our group, but I just want to comment. I did get together with Irene to go over the work that the 50th anniversary is doing, and that there's a tie-in there, and I think it's a wonderful time with community relations. And I just want to say, I think, I went over this, and the work that you guys are doing is phenomenal.
And of course, anyone who wants to join the committees, we love having anyone and everyone, don't we?
Another committee. With that, we're through the committee reports. I don't believe there are any other comments, so we'll move on. The first, we have four presentations. The first is opt-out health and PE requirements. With that, we get started. Who's going to be the driver? You going to be the driver? Okay, both of you. So we have Terry McConnell and Mary Diaz. Can you frame this for us too, Terry? So we know.
He's not here tonight.
Again, Mary and I appreciate you giving us some time. We know we have about 4 presentations, so we'll try to make this as quick as possible. One of the concerns we have in relation to opt-out for PE, About 4 years ago, this was brought before the board, and again, opt-out is very popular because it allows students to have the opportunity, if they play a sport or they're in the band, to opt out, meaning they're allowed to have a study hall in lieu of PE. And while we realize it is popular, when it was first introduced, I'm not sure if physical education had any real input. They were told more or less in September, we're going to allow students to opt out. The concern that Mario and the PE teachers have over the course of time is whether or not we are abiding by the core curriculum standards for physical education. Mario has a packet he's going to pass out for you to look at your leisure. It's not, we're not asking today to eliminate opt-out totally, but we're just saying to you that we're starting to look at it because we have some real concerns whether or not we're adhering to the core curriculum standards. I will also throw in that Mario contacted the state, and they're a little fuzzy themselves. And what they had said in October, those are my words, not the state's, okay? In October, they are looking at physical education and how it applies to option 2, which is where we get the opt-out out of and where we get our independent study as well for physical education. So we just want to alert you that we have some concerns, and when Mario will give you the package that you can read at another point, but you will see that with some of the standards that the state has for PE, every sport we looked at and band really do not adhere to all of them. So we have some concerns, but we want to go further and get more information, and then we believe later on we'll be able to get a better handle on whether or not we're adhering to what we're supposed to have. In our conference and in our county, there are only 2 schools that offer opt-out. And it's not a type of thing, most schools do not offer opt-out. And again, we know it's very popular and we're not, but our concern is if in fact we're even adhering to the core curriculum standards. In our conference and county, same thing, because most of the counties, Bernard's offers it in Ridge. Okay, they're the only 2, none of the others. And we had our AD actually email the entire state, and we received about 7 responses back. Now again, it's the summertime, so you're never really sure, but we're assuming that, again, most schools do not offer opt-out, and there may be a number of reasons why, but we want to gather more information, but we just wanted to alert you today that we do have some concerns. Now, we are asking, and we did go to the curriculum committee when we met, and one of the concerns we have is with the 9th graders. And I'm going to let Mario maybe go into more detail, but there's a strong belief that freshmen need the necessary foundation of the skills and strategies that would enable them to maximize their physical, social, personal, and psychological development. Freshmen are introduced into a fitness and wellness program during the first marking period that begins the process for the learning of lifelong skills that are carried out over the 3 marking periods. And again, PE, I think sometimes there's a misconception or a perception about PE. It's not the old PE where you just, I don't want to offend anybody, but sometimes people perceive you roll out the basketball during the winter season, you touch footballs during the fall and softball. It's not that. There's so much more. And you all know all the studies and everything that's going on with children and health, and again, not getting enough exercise. So Mario and his staff believe strongly that the freshmen, they really are missing some key elements that are kind of the foundation of PE. And the staff, we are asking that you allow us to with freshmen, no longer have the opt-out for freshmen. And that would be 3 marking periods. The 4th marking period, of course, they have health, and no one can opt out for health. And one of the concerns we understand, again, with the student athletes. With the freshmen, though, it's just a little different. Their practice schedules are not as rigorous. Their games are a little different as far as the amount of games they have, participation, and what we would allow, and we always have before the opt-out, anytime they have a contest, they do not have to participate in gym that day.
Is this for this year or next year?
This is for this year.
So I mean, school starts in like 10 days. So I mean,
Yes.
do we have to like vote on this tonight? Do we have to even vote on this?
That's what he's asking.
let's get to the end.
Let's get through the
Okay,
presentation.
Okay, okay.
Let's get through the presentation.
And again, I'll go through, again, there's 3 steps to this, and then if you have questions, we can go here. Second proposal, if a student has a study hall already, we're asking that students not be allowed to opt out, which would give them 2 study halls. We're not sure that there's, again, we don't think it's proper for a child to have 2 study halls. So, and the way we're looking at our schedule this year, there may be a number of students that already have a study hall put in to one of the 2 semesters. So we're asking that a student who has 1 study hall already not be allowed to opt out, which would give them 2 study halls for the day.
This is not the 9th grade, this is through the entire 10th and 11th and 12th grade.
This is 9 through 12.
Just want to clarify
And
that.
let me have it, Brian. I think I missed one. Go back. Back. Should be able to go. Check it. Okay, this is good. And last, one of the loopholes we have in PE, right now we say you must pass 2 out of 3 marking periods to pass PE. One of the concerns we have, there's a little loophole that has been around for a while, and we're starting to see it more and more. Student already knows they passed 2. 3rd marking period, they don't get dressed, they refuse to participate, etc. What we're asking is that you allow us to have students pass all 3 marking periods of the school year. Now, one of the concerns people, and I'm going to say this, and I work with Mario in the PE department, so I can say this for a fact. PE goes out of their way. If we looked at the amount of students who failed every subject, I would say that PE is probably down the bottom as far as failing. PE teachers go out of their way. For example, anytime a student is unprepared, every week the student has 1 day after school to make up a class that they missed. If you say, well, what if a student failed the 1st marking period, they're dead. Not necessarily. There are other ways we can, for example, there are times what we've done, a student has a study hall, we give them 2 PEs the next marking period. If that doesn't work, we come up with ways. We're not going to say at the end of the 1st marking period, you're done, forget it. We will come up with there are many alternatives to allow the student to pass. What we're asking is to close up the loophole, because more and more students, once they know that they don't have to pass that last marking period, it becomes very difficult for the PE teacher. They don't participate, they don't get dressed. Now we have to worry about their wand, and they know that. They know that. So what we're asking you to allow us to have students pass all 3 marking periods. We're open to any questions.
Any questions?
Sir, just on the last thing you said, is assuming we make that change,
The 3.
so that they have health in the 3 marking periods,
Right.
they have to pass them all.
Right.
What happens then to a student who doesn't? Do they not get promoted to the next grade? Do they have to go to summer school?
Well, they have the option of going to summer school or taking 2 PEs the following year. Now, if it's a senior, obviously now we have an issue. But again, I can guarantee you, we go out of our way. Not we, I'm going to say Mario and his staff go out of our way. If a kid fails PE, they've worked very hard at it. They really have, because we do everything we can, and again, again, I know, I can't remember the last senior who failed, didn't graduate because they only didn't pass PE. Trust me, we make every attempt, and the parent, again, and we make it clear with parents, we contact parents, everybody's on board. We know, the kid knows, the parent, everybody knows what that child has to do. And it really comes down to a matter of they just don't care, they just don't dress, and again, I'm not sure how much we can do, but they bend over backwards for kids, so it's never going to be a gotcha. where, hey, you know what, fourth market period, we say, you didn't do it, you didn't do it.
So all freshmen take gym, and 10, 11, 12th grades, even if you have a sport, if you have 2 study halls, you're going to take
You
gym,
can't
right?
opt out, right.
You can't opt out.
Right.
And then you have to, this third part of it, you, even if you pass the first two market periods, you still have to take the third.
Correct.
Okay. How many, just out of curiosity, right now, so roughly you have 2,000 kids in the high school. Last year, how many kids, because they're in band or sport, opted out of the 2,000 of gym?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Each marking period is different. There could be anywhere from 200 to 300 kids that opt out. But again, it all depends because, for example, your fall sport, you have more sports in the fall than you do in the winter. And one of the things we also found to be, I see the trend, for example, with seniors. The seniors get to a point where they'd rather be in gym than opt out. Okay, because while most kids, I think, use it for the right reasons, there are some times when the seniors just say, you know what, I don't need a study hall. I'd rather be in PE. And the athletes know that when they have game day, they do not have to dress for game day.
How many kids, Tom, have 2 study halls? How many would this affect? How many kids have 2 study halls on any given
Up until
market period?
now?
Yeah.
We didn't allow.
Didn't allow.
Did not allow.
When you say up until now, this year will be the first time kids are going to, some will have 2 study halls?
Yes.
Oh, so we don't have any data going back, this is just right now. Do you know how many kids have 2 study halls?
Not at this very moment. I will know in a couple days.
I mean, of 2,000, 2,000 kids, I mean, would be, a guess, more than 200 kids? Or not that many?
I think they may not have the data on that yet.
You don't know yet, okay.
We'll get that when we talk maybe a little bit about the
I'm
schedule
actually,
status,
the
but-
surprising thing to me was that, how many high schools do you count? 20 high schools?
14.
14?
20 in a conference.
20 in a conference. Only 3 of us have opted out to begin with.
And
I'm surprised.
And Bernard's does not have opt-out for freshmen. Bernard's has the same concept that we're asking for. They believe that the freshmen really should have the foundation.
I mean, is this, looking down the road, would you like to get rid of the opt-out completely?
It's not a matter of getting rid of it. Our concern, again, is whether or not we're adhering to the core curriculum standard. At this point, when Mario went sport by sport, to be honest with you, the answer is no. But again, we're waiting to get more information, and we're waiting to see what the state comes up with as they're looking at PE and how it relates to option 2.
Here's the last question on this. The kids, they can opt out or not opt out, right?
Right.
What do you know about what percentage of kids who are eligible to opt out of phys ed actually opt out?
Majority do.
Majority
do. But as I said, as the years go on, by the time they get to be seniors, I'm going to say maybe even half don't, because they'd rather just participate in the sport.
Got it.
Mary, you had some material there you were going to hand out to us, is that right? That has to do with the curriculum, the core curriculum content standards? So why don't you pass it on?
Do we have to vote on this?
Yeah, why don't you, is that okay?
Before, I think you're going to have to give us
And-
some direction.
Well, I'm saying, do we have to officially vote on this?
Can I ask you, I have 2 questions. One is, and this is where Rob started this discussion in part, it's now 2 weeks or 3 weeks before school starts. Can you explain to me, 1, what is the urgency, and 2, what is it that you actually want? Is this just information for us tonight, or was there something you wanted us to
Well,
take
okay.
action? So can you
Again,
try to adjust the urgency?
The information part was as far as we wanted to alert you that we are looking at opt-out because we have some serious concerns about whether or not we're adhering to the core curriculum standards. But we're not going to come to you today and say we want to eliminate it. We understand, and parents, again, we understand parents believe they like it, okay? We surely understand that. And what I might, if you don't feel comfortable, again, we need, the concern is getting it to the parents. So for example, with the opt-out doesn't, by the time we gather the information, because what happens, the first few days of PE, we have to find out what kids want to opt out. They have to fill out a form, They have to have their parents fill out the form, sign it. So the whole process takes about a week or two, because then we have to make sure we find study halls to put them in, et cetera. So what I'm getting at, if this is something that you believe you need to wait till the September meeting, that still gives us time. If you say, okay, we can keep the freshmen, we agree with you that the freshmen need the foundation. Now, the other two, you know, it's going to, again, can we wait on the other two? I think to the next meeting, the answer is yes. Are we asking you for this year? The answer is yes.
What is the urgency that's pushing it at this time? What's raised the concern from your standpoint?
Regarding the ninth grade opt-out?
Well,
Regarding doing anything this school year.
Re-looking at the opt-out.
Let me just address the ninth grade opt-out. When we reassessed, got some data, regarding the health of our youth and everything that's out there, we felt very, very committed to developing some type of program, okay, that really addresses this unique problem, okay, to our nation. So we developed a course last summer during our curriculum days called Wellness Education, okay? And that course basically lays the foundation for what we do in every other activity. We've gotten away from, even though we list team sports, our classes start with dynamic warm-ups, okay? Which in itself has brought back the conditioning part, the physical fitness part of physical education into the class. Now, with the wellness program, we also spun off in making that a requirement for all 9th and 10th graders, that they go through the 7-week course, okay, which involves classroom discussion and involves lab days, which are in the fitness room, okay, and addresses a lot of things that kids need to know at an early age. That's also spun off into our adventure education program, which we felt, hey, this could be a very dynamic thing for kids to be involved in team building, communication, leadership skills. I mean, physical education talks about those things, but you really don't get into that unless you're an athlete. Adventure education is probably the only activity that I've seen that really stresses those benefits of being active. So we wanted to make that a mandatory course also, a 4-week initiative. So by spinning off to that, we felt, boy, some kids missed this last year. And there's no way for them to get that back unless they took it as a sophomore the following year where they didn't opt out. It just felt like it's something that was important to us.
So that's the urgency then, and that's also the need to bring something into the 9th grade program for this year, is what you're saying. Is there any other urgency? Is there anything else that's driving the investigation, or look at the opt-out at this point in time?
No, I think one of the things also is, again, when we go back 4 years ago, the PE really wasn't brought into the discussion. And I think that's something they've always had concerns about, again, whether they fit the standards, again, going back to the concerns about freshman year and what the kids do miss. So I think that's been a discussion that has been ongoing, and it came to a point where, and again, it may have been late, I totally understand that, but it got to the point where we said, we need to bring this forward now, and especially when we started to look at the core curriculum standards, and they don't match up. So we had some concerns.
And you said we could actually vote on the 9th grade opt-out in our first meeting in September.
Could we not vote on it tonight? I don't think that they're going to bring us any more information.
Well,
Yeah, I'm saying, why wouldn't we do it tonight?
It's a fair enough point. I'm just asking the question for right now. Is that, am I correct?
Well, the only thing would be, it's just a matter of notifying, parents. Again, the concern might be parents. I guess there may be a concern about parents having an input on that. I mean, again, we don't actually, the program doesn't begin until like the 2nd week of school. So your first meeting, you'd have the answers, you'd have time. It'd just be a matter of again, alerting the parents that this is what's going to be.
Bernie, you had a question?
I'm one of those who voted at the last meeting, to go to the new scheduling and went along with kind of a last-minute approval of this. And I'm much more reluctant now than ever to do something like this at this late date. And I would just like to offer some alternative ideas. First, with physical education, why don't you give a number grade so you can average it like any other course? And secondly, I think the concerns I heard really apply more to the kids who are not involved with sports. My suggestion there was that if there are some key ideas that you're doing in the class, make sure all your coaches can support those same ideas and convey them. And so my vote today would be to not do anything this year, but maybe next year.
Well, just as Sandy alluded to, one of the things that we'd like to have for further discussion, and that would clear up, you're right, the pass-fail, is a discussion of possibly going to numerical grade for PE as well.
And I encourage the study.
That's down the line, yes. Pete?
Mario, I'd like to follow up. The wellness course that you're talking about, I don't have a clear idea. Is that a 5-week course, a 7-week course? How is it done? And the reason, let me just jump to the end, because the reason I'm asking, because I'm wondering whether you've looked at other things other than eliminating opt-out to find a way to make sure that during the course of the year, everybody gets that particular wellness course. So I want to know what options you've explored, because like Bernie, in my year and a half on the board, where we've gotten ourselves into the most, quote, trouble, is when we get a proposal come to us and we quick act and haven't had a chance, as Terry says, to get the input from parents and the stakeholders and the people who are going to be affected by this, who aren't sitting here on a Monday night saying, have I thought of everything, but have had a chance to think about it a little longer and say, and then come to you or to Terry or to me and say, well, have you thought of these problems with it? But the wellness course, is there another way to accomplish that?
The only other way to accommodate is to distribute what we do in the course.
And how do we do that now?
Because of the fall, or winter, or spring, we don't know. There's such a machine like that thing that kids, you may have 50 kids in the fall, like Terry said. You may have 60 in the winter. You may have 100 in the spring. So it's kind of hard to design the program or schedule the program when you start wellness. We actually will start wellness education the first marking period, okay, and it'll go right through into the second because the number of kids we have, the freshman class is the largest, and the amount of teachers that facilitate the fitness room and coordinate the classrooms. It's better to do like the 3-tier. So we start right from the very beginning, and then we schedule another group in there, and then another group. So, but the only alternative in order for them to get this would be a distribution. But to actually take the class would be very difficult. You could have a class of 30 freshmen, 10 opted out the first marking period. It's hard to put them, and if they come back the second marking period, they're not opting out. It's hard to put them in a freshman class that didn't have opt-out, because that might make it into a 40 or to a 45 number. So that part.
Okay, so we have.
Of the 3 proposals, I certainly, to Pete's point and to Bernie's point, maybe there should be some more discussion on points 2 and 3. Where the kids who are really affected are the sophomores, juniors, and seniors. To me, the time is now. I mean, I don't think any of us really have any major disputes or disagreements on the state of fitness and wellness. It's a national disgrace across the country. With children and, for that matter, adults and everyone else. Obesity and to try and inculcate a healthy lifestyle is one of the important things that a school can be involved with. In addition to all the scholastic endeavors, I frankly don't see any downside to the freshmen who, from an athletic point of view, might even be less rigorous than the kids on varsity and JV who are perhaps sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And I'm sorry my back's to you guys, but in terms of implementing this just with the freshmen, is this it's no big deal? You have school starts in 2 weeks. If we gave you the go-ahead on this, a good idea, you're right, maybe we could have had it a couple of months ago, but if it's a good idea, it would have been a good idea then, it's a good idea now. Is there any difficulty if, we had the vote just on this first aspect, Tom, to get this thing going? Okay.
Do you want to answer, and then I don't want to jump in.
Not at all.
All right. What I'd like to remind us that we have a very broad phys ed offering. Our ninth graders are coming from small schools, coming into a very new environment for themselves. Every study has proven that if you sit too long, your brain does go to sleep. And the nicest thing you can do to wake yourself up is to start moving around. Well, we don't want them moving around in most classrooms, but we do want to give them the opportunity to move. So to me, you're really denying these youngsters who are still quite young, transitioning into another school by taking away their opportunity to go into phys ed. And I know from my day, from my children's day, it's a different phys ed today. It's not bouncing the basketball and kicking a ball or whatever. It really has mind as well as body, Selma, and something, there's expression there, so that I think we would be holding back and not helping our ninth graders of this year. And I see no real reason to hold back rather than jump in and let these kids have what would be best for their bodies and their minds. So I don't see any reason to hold off for another year on this. I'm only talking about the ninth graders. It's not going to send the community in turmoil because the ninth graders are all going to have a phys ed opportunity to move their bodies during the school day from 7:30 till 2:15.
And not just phys ed, Sandy, a whole wellness, nutrition, way of life.
That's fine, but even if they got that, I really want to see these kids get up and move at some
Right.
point during the day.
They don't
The
need
best place
study
to have them
walls.
do it is right in phys ed.
We've had plenty of discussion on this, unless somebody has a new point to make. If we want to go forward with this, we need a motion, and we can do it now, to permit the opt-out of the ninth grade.
To not
Permit?
Or to not permit the opt-out of the ninth grade. So if somebody wants to make that motion, we get a second, then we can go ahead and vote on it, or we can move on if we don't
No,
get that.
well, no, Brad,
ahead.
I just wanted to make the counterpoint, in terms of, with opting out. It does give the kids who are athletes, who are practicing, in the evenings, afternoons, time to get their studying done in the, during the school day. So there is a value to it, and, like Terry said, it is a very popular program, so I just wanted to, share that comment with the board.
I'd just make one other comment, that I do intend to vote against it, but I very much want to encourage you to get the information out to every incoming freshman in something that is easily digested, could be on a website, do something to get the information out, no matter what we vote tonight.
Paul, if I may?
Go ahead.
And I hope the last comment I'll make on this, Sandy, I don't think we're taking any opportunity away from anybody to say you can't opt out. I mean, they have an opportunity to go to gym. Nobody's forcing them to opt out under the current system. My concern, though, is we do this, and at the next meeting, we've got the parents of ninth graders, people coming in who've had their older kids go through this, been able to do it, felt that it was valuable for the first marking period, and we're saying that without any notice to the parents that this is what we're going to do, without telling them, so that they can come in and we can vote on it at the next meeting when we've, at least I can sit here and say, you had your chance to come tell us. Instead, this is another sort of almost stealthy way to do it, and I don't think that's what we should be doing to our parents or to our students. And that's why I'd recommend that we vote on it next meeting.
Do we have a motion here to,
Well, if it almost sounds like Paul and other people here would really like to hold it to next week, so why don't we just not make a motion and let's hold it not next week, but
Are
the
you
next
more
meeting.
inclined to vote for this if you have it noticed in the next meeting?
That we've told
Do we have a
them
meeting
that
before?
we'll tell the
Do we have a meeting
parents.
before school begins?
Well, he has
Not
2
just
weeks after
before school begins, but that we announce it in the minutes. We ask the newspaper to let people know that we're considering this, and if people have concerns about it, to come express them at the next board meeting. It'll be
Put it
on the
website
agenda.
as a key discussion
okay, so
item.
Sandy's made the point that we just move it out to the next meeting. You've made the same point.
Put it on the agenda.
Is that what we want to do? We don't need to have a motion and second on that. We just be silent whether we're
No,
going to make a
I'd rather see the thing
You live
pass,
with
but
that?
if everyone needs some more time, then let's do it.
Trying to make sure we get consensus on this from
Right.
parents as well as the other stakeholders in this.
And that's fine, we
Okay.
understand that. Is that on all three then?
But
No, that's on the ninth grade.
That's on the
only.
ninth.
I think that's the one that
I think that's
be the most inclined to
I
pass.
think your
No, we
10th, 11th, and 12th are going to need more
Maybe a little more
discussion.
Yeah, that's
study.
not for this year then, that would not be this.
Maybe next mark, maybe in
Unless
the
you
middle
still
of
want
the
to
year,
do
I
the
don't know.
two, you said this year you have 2 studies.
The other
You don't get your money's worth on
the
2
pass-
studies here.
The pass for all three marking periods, and the 2 study halls, is that also for next meeting, or is that something you can?
I'm not going to draft or craft the motion, the resolution at this point in time. Okay, I think we need to talk about that, but I think that we need to let people know, and that's the intent of this board, to let people know that there's going to be this discussion. There's quite possibly, and most realistically, going to be a motion with regard to ninth graders at the next meeting. Okay, I wouldn't go beyond that. I don't think I've heard this board saying we want to go beyond that.
No, in fact, I would like to know why we can't implement number grades and make it more consistent with the other courses.
another topic.
That's another whole
We'll
discussion.
bring that-
At the
But
curriculum.
we ought to have that discussion before we decide about this.
Oh, I disagree. I
So why
strongly
don't we
disagree with that.
We
One
can-
has
we can
nothing to do
open
with
that
the
up.
other.
Why don't we move on? If that's clear to you guys, we'll bring it back to the next meeting. You can work with Fran, we get a resolution for ninth graders. Everybody will be able to have they talk about it then also at that point in time, okay? We're in the process of, we will be scheduling that meeting, by the way, first meeting in September, in this meeting, so you can find out when it's gonna be.
Well, when would something be on the website?
I have no
Just to
idea.
clarify-
I would like to do it far enough ahead that people know what's coming.
Tom, what were you gonna
Are we
say?
going to discuss at that time the 3 passing and the 1 study issue?
We
Or
can-
is that just an educational administrative
I
decision?
think we're not making a commitment.
We're not making a commitment on that. We can discuss it, but the thing that we might well be making a commitment on would be the ninth grade.
Taking a vote on the first point.
But
In
Ninth
2
grade op-
weeks?
Yes.
Well, what about the other 2 aspects?
I said no on that. I said that we will be discussing those other 2 points.
Paul,
I think there's,
this board did vote on opting out, and we did not do it with 2 meetings and a website, but one evening it came up and we did vote on it, if I recall properly. It's because I just said, why are we voting on it? Is this not administrative? And I was told, no, in my left ear, that no, because we had voted to opt out. So certainly the board has, we always have the privilege, but it has the responsibility to vote on rescinding it. However, the other 2 points, I have been on a long time. I never heard that 2 passing periods and 1 failure is a pass. That was administrative, the same as giving grades and what, that should not really be a board decision. That goes into overstepping our job.
It's
That's
pretty-
not being a board of overseers. That's getting into a board of directors, which we are not.
I'm going to disagree with you on that. I don't see how passing, changing the school standards on what's passing and not passing is not a Board of
That was
Education
not brought to us in the first
consideration.
place.
well, we just moved, excuse me, I'm gonna put an end to it. We have been on this discussion now for 35 minutes, okay? I think this is long enough for us to have talked about this topic, and probably twice as long as we probably should have spent on it. I think what we want to do for the next meeting is to have the option to vote on the first item, which had to do with the ninth grade opt-out, and all the other items will still be up for discussion as informational for this board, okay?
Thank you.
We can move on then. Next topic, the GPA recommendation from Mr. Lacio and Tom Vigancy, Dr. Vigancy.
Before presenting, first of all, I'd like to thank Terry and Mario, especially Terry, because Terry's been on vacation. He came up from LBI in the driving rain. And Terry, I very much appreciate it, Mario, I very much appreciate it. And I thank the board for giving us the time. I apologize for not being at the July 14th meeting when we initially proposed the GPA system, but a change in the GPA system. But I haven't talked to Mike and Dr. Strauss and whatnot. My understanding was, the sense of the board was to get some more data regarding the impact on students. So what Mike and I and Ms. Gannon did was did a little homework regarding this. And just a reminder that, about 3 or 4 years ago, we were charged with developing a GPA, a new GPA program that would take into account our grading system from 0 to 100. And we did that, and it was accepted by the board, and we used it now for 2 or 3 years. We were charged again by the board to look at the system that we had, because there seemed to be some inequities within the GPA system. I.e., that for some GPAs, a weighted GPA was lower than an unweighted, which is very difficult to understand. When we looked at the second and third and fourth quartile are middle kids. Our K, some of our J's, and certainly our L's were below maybe 5 or 6 tenths of a point in comparison to other
Said no
schools.
kids there. There's no way we
Just
can get
didn't
started.
seem right
I didn't
for that
none
little
of our
group.
kids have gone to school.
So we were charged with looking at a new system. Mike checked with other school systems in the neighboring
We're
areas
gonna look at this.
and try to create not a new wheel, but take from the spokes of other good wheels around us and put together a new GPA program, a system. We brought it to the curriculum committee of Watch Our Hills. They suggested some changes. We put those changes into effect. We brought it to the guidance. We applaud the work of Mike, because they were looking for a new system that would benefit the majority of our students. We brought it to the Board of Education Curriculum Committee that approved it, and now we bring it back to you with some more data that you had requested.
Before we get,
Right?
thank you,
Yes.
Tom. Before we get started, can I just ask everybody to be focused on the presenter, Pete and Sandy? Could I ask you guys to stay with the presenter and those of you in the audience so we can like limit the distractions during the discussion? Okay.
Mike?
Thank you for allowing me to come tonight again and discuss the proposed GPA system. Up here is the proposed system that's based on 2 types of GPA. First would be a non-weighted GPA, top being a 4.0, and letter grades associated with number ranges that students would achieve in certain classes. The other GPA that's to the right of it is the weighted GPA, which would be based on classes that students took that had a letter designation or an ability level designation behind them, such as honors AP, J, K, and L. And those weights are determined by the fact that currently our weighted GPA, the top of it is a 5.3. And if we wanted to stay with that number, this is the weight that we would have to multiply the non-weighted GPA by to get the numbers that you see up there. This has been out there for quite a while. Been at a couple other board meetings with it. So this is not new information. This is what has been proposed before. And of course, one of the main things we maintained was that between an 80 and an 82, the non-weighted GPA stayed at a 3.0, which was something that I saw at many of the surrounding districts that would allow our students to compete with other students trying to get into colleges around the nation. The proposal that we made about a month ago was also about what should count. We talked about in the non-weighted GPA, all courses except PE, because we do not have a number grade behind PE. And weighted should have all courses except PE also, and that's consistent with many schools that are in our surrounding neighborhood. We did some studies, the board was interested in looking at how current GPAs are in the school and so forth. So we looked at the current GPA system and the proposed system of all the students in the school. Every student, freshman, sophomore, junior, rising that is, or will be sophomores next year, juniors and seniors. In our current system, our non-weighted GPA average of all students is a 3.279, and our weighted is 3.047. That tells us that our weighted GPA is lower than non-weighted. To me, that doesn't sound right. A weighted GPA, in my view, should be higher. In the new system, we take care of that. Our GPA in the new system for the entire school, our non-weighted GPA would be a 3.163. It would go down a little bit, 0.116, but our weighted would shoot up to 0.52 up. So it would increase there, and it would alleviate that discrepancy between weighted and non-weighted. We then looked at the class of 08, this year's seniors, and we just looked at their GPAs because this is probably the class that would be most affected. Again, with the current system, their non-weighted GPA would be higher than their weighted GPA, an anomaly. The new system would take care of that. The change would be about .116 for non-weighted, but plus .521 for weighted. We looked at the top 20 students. Their non-weighted difference is .1. Their weighted difference is .02. That was something of interest or a question we had last time back.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, Mike?
The top 20 students in the class of 2008, when we give them when we use the new system, their non-weighted GPA difference is .1, and their weighted difference is .02. So that's what the top 20 students, what their differences in the current new system.
You know, let's not miss something. Well, very awesome. You show an anomaly that the weighted average is less than the non-weighted average. Can that result from the fact that teachers who are teaching AP and honors, if you look at their spread of grades, grade tougher than teachers who are teaching non-AP, non-honors classes? I mean, just say, if there's 60 kids in AP history, okay? Average grade is an 80. And to take 60 kids who are in a J history, and the average grade is a 85. So to say, is the problem the weighted, non-weighted system, or perhaps the way teachers who are teaching weighted, proposed weighted classes, honors and AP classes, are just grading much more, in a much more difficult manner than other teachers?
I don't think so. Looking at grades as I do, and looking at AP grades versus J and K, they all tend to average between 80 and 83 most of the time. I think they grade tougher, but I think they rise to the occasion. And I don't think that's the reason. Analysis and I look at grades and so forth. Do I think that some honors classes there's tougher grades? Probably. But I don't think
how can a non-weighted class have a higher average than a GPA than a weighted class?
That's because the current weighted system is not uniform. It is totally not uniform. And the current non-weighted system at the top is not uniform at all. And it's skewing numbers because of this non-uniformity. That's the main issue. When we have a difference of 0.05 at the top, and in the middle there's a difference of 0.5, and non-weighted GPA, that's going to skew numbers. Not so much I think about how teachers are graded and so forth, but the current scale is just, there's no equity. It is causing some large discrepancies. That's really what it is. And I've looked at it with other people, and that's what we really feel like where the problem lies. So when we have some equity in the scale, I think the numbers do balance out a little better. And you have to see the current scale to see that problem. There's some major issues.
Just one other question. It's sort of related, but you look at it, Mike, and have you done looking at this? This was the old, like the same legal system, forum shopping to find the judge who's more likely to be sympathetic to the defendant, or plaintiff or defendant, and kids take courses, and they might not have college, they were able to do it, not so much high school, Alessio, he's a soft touch, most of the kids get B pluses and A's, and Fallon's a wallbuster, and most of the kids are getting C pluses and B minus. Have we done in the school side-by-side comparisons of the grades in identical classes, AP History, AP English, Calculus, whatever they are? I'll just say in the honors AP. It could all true in J classes. Teachers who teach the same classes, the percentage breakdown of their grades across the board.
I'll say that in my department, I do that. I probably get more phone calls about grades than anybody in the school. So I do look at, if I have 12 sections of geometry K, and I have 6 teachers teaching, or 5 teachers, I look at the spread of grades amongst the teachers, especially during midterm and final exam time. And make comments about it and talk to teachers about it. And it's well known that I do look at that. So that makes teachers more collegial. That makes teachers make sure that they're all grading the same.
When you say you speak to teachers, and just ask you, because I can't ask you what other departments do, if you see disparities and say, you know what, maybe this teacher is too generous with A's, and this teacher is, too frugal with A's, if that's the right way of looking at it. What do you say? Or do you when a teacher goes in, teaching a class, do you discuss with them, there should be some type of curve for the kids who are all performing well, that if 80% of kids get A's, so be it.
I usually have the discussion of why are there so many low grades, not so much why there's so many high grades. And we get a variety of answers. Whether some students are repeating the course, or some students have had some personal issues throughout the semester. I mean, you name it, I've heard it.
Rob, let's let him finish. Let's let him go through the rest of the presentation. Because I'd like to see the rest of the data. So before and then we'll get into questions if we have them. At that time, Rob, let's move on.
Okay.
I want to hear the rest of the presentation.
Well, if you stop interrupting me, I'll finish the
I
question.
want the question. I don't want the question right now. We'll get it when we're done.
Ask the question.
We'll get it when we're done, please.
Paul, if I'm asking a question, you're the president, you're not the dictator, okay? And it's really rude, and it's an affront to you.
You've been asking questions now for
sorry,
5
Paul.
minutes. That's it.
I'm sorry, I'm asking a question.
Excuse me.
I just-
Excuse me. Hold on. What would this board like to do? Do we want to continue to hear Rob ask questions, or do we want to move on with the rest of the presentation? I'm
Rob,
asking the board what they want to do at this time,
Don't
Rob.
make it an argument.
It's disrespectful to me.
It may be, but your president did ask for something, and why didn't you hold
What
your
do you guys
question?
wanna do?
You can hold your question,
Do
let
we
him
want to
finish
move
up.
forward, or do we
I
want
think
to
I'd
we
like
continue to
should
ask?
finish the presentation, then ask the questions after the presentation.
Whatever the board wants to do, it's up to them.
In many other presentations, though, we ask when it's appropriate, so I don't have
And
a
that's
strong
fine,
feeling.
and I'm just saying, he's now had 4 questions in a row, and I was saying, let's move on, and we'll get to the rest of the questions at the end of this. That's all I'm saying.
So this is
Hold on. I want to hear what the rest of the board has to say, because if the rest of the board says, let's let Rob ask the questions, we'll have him do it.
You know what? My issue is with your rudeness, not with whether or not the other members of the board agree with you or not. So you know
I
what?
think there has to be a
You know, Rob,
side conversation
that's fine,
about this.
Rob. You can disagree.
Michael,
Rob, you can disagree with.
Michael, I'll hold my question. Thank you.
Rob, you can disagree with me, but I don't expect you to be disrespectful to me. And I was trying to interject
You're
my.
being incredibly disrespectful.
Does the board want to continue with the presentation, or do they want to hear Rob's question?
I don't want to ask my question. I want to ask Michael.
Well, may I suggest that we
Continue.
continue, just
Yeah, let's
continue, and
continue.
let's cool the air.
This is the class of 2008's data. We went through the top 20 students and so forth. So then we started to look at the second and third quartile of students. That is, looking at the middle student. That's really what we wanted to look at. And again, we see that in the current system, the weighted average is lower than the non-weighted. But with the new system, that weighted average would shoot up and would take care of that anomaly that we do see. Again, we are seeing that there will be slight changes in the non-weighted GPA, about 0.15 or something like that, but we will see some major increases in that weighted, and I think it puts our students in a better light than it is. I have to say, looking at the data and seeing that the entire school, that taking everybody together, that the weighted GPA is lower than non-weighted, is something that I think is a problem with the current system. That's where we're at. Those are some of the questions the board had asked last time, so I tried to clear up any of those.
Questions?
I have a
Do
few.
we want to go, excuse me.
Go ahead, Rob, you want to?
Rob had a question that he wished to finish. Do we want to let him finish?
Yes.
Rob?
I may have missed it, but could you explain simply why, in the first table, why the non-weighted went down? Is that just simply due to the use of straight lines in our graph on the first page? What's different about the new non-weighted than the old non-weighted?
The old non-weighted that difference between 95 and 100 and 90 to 94 is 0.05. The difference here is 0.25. And at the top of the current non-weighted GPA, you're almost losing no points at the top for 1 point changes in a numerical grade. While students in the middle of the current non-weighted, they're losing about 0.5. So it's very favorable to the top student. And that's why I think, well, now that there's some equity, and now that it's not 4 to 3.95, it's 4 to 3.75, you do see changes there. That's why. The current system, if you look at it, is 4, 3.95, 3.9, and then it drops dramatically for the student right in the middle.
So if I went back to the first page, you're saying that the A minus instead of 3.75 would be what?
Right now, the 97 to 100 is a 4.0. 93 to 96 is 3.95. 90 to 92 is 3.9. 87 to 89 is 3.8. 83 to 86 is 3.5. There's some definite disparities there between the top and the middle student. And if you look at our students, they're in that 80 to 85 range. And this is our current. This is what I was reading off right there. It's on our website.
And what do other schools do with regard to that?
Other schools have equity.
More of a straight line like
Yes,
this?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so I guess I was trying to say I should not be concerned then with the change in the non-weighted.
Well, that numerical grade still, you know, we were concerned about that. That we're going from a B to a B minus. You know, that's as best as we can say it is. It's a B and a B minus, and we currently don't have a minus plus system. So that is that was a concern. Anytime the GPA goes down, but once it goes down, it still means the same thing really. It's not like that 3.163 is now a C. It's a B minus.
By and large, all of our middle students were killed when we sent out GPAs. All of our K and some of our Js, when we sent them out, were 0.5 lower than our comparative schools. Not our upper kids we don't worry about. Look at the impact. Well, go to the next one. For our upper kids, they're not going to change whatsoever. A little here, a little there. Their GPAs for weighted goes up a little bit. For the non-weighted, out of our 20 kids in the top 20, it's about 50-50. Their unweighted goes down a little, some goes up, but it's insignificant in comparison to the good that it gives to probably 95% of our school, 90 to 95%. And that's what I believe we were charged to do, to take a look at a more equitable system at this point. And that's what we've tried to do. Bernie had a good question in terms of why did this happen? Because what we did, that top 4, 3.95, 3.9, 3.8, all of a sudden, a drop down that you have there, Bernie, I guess you have our old one. It was dramatic. Mike has created an equitable system that goes down in the proper ranges all the way through what is over 60, through 60, through passing.
In essence, the current non-weighted at the top acts like a weighted, because there's such a small difference. That's what it really acts as, and that's what's causing the inversion. So, yes.
What I'm trying to say before, that the corrective, the impact that you're trying to, the problem you're trying to correct, can't really be fixed alone unless, and I mean you, because you're just you're one department time, but looking at the probity and the equality of teachers grading the same subjects.
If I could respond to that, because I sometimes can see the forest from the trees, where Mike takes a look at the math department and deals with that. I get to look at all the departments. And what Mike described in terms of what he does is what all departments do. If you have a teacher who teaches one age class and another who teaches another, You need to, as a department supervisor, look at it and make determinations. Are there significant differences? And if so, why? And I, as a principal, have to do the same thing. And by and large, there can be differences. There are years where there are differences, and we try to get on that as quick as possible to determine why. Why are there, Tom teaches this same course that Mike does. Mike's grades are higher than Tom's. Why? And there could be reasons other than Mike's an easier teacher than I, less rigorous than I. There could be other factors involved. But we do look at that and analyze that. And to answer your question regarding the grades, our honors and J kids, even though it's a rigorous curriculum, their averages are high. Makes sense. Again, I get to look at these averages for our H's and our APs and our J's and our K's. And they are, as you would suspect, higher than our K's and our L's and our J's. Yet they're more rigorous. Now, I do not believe we have ever had a concern with grade inflation. No one's ever, in all the complaints that we may get, grade inflation hasn't been one of those complaints at all. Whether it's an L class or whether it's an AP class. Fortunately, we hire professionals who know how to teach and do their job well and are equitable.
Laura, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Do you know what percentage of students are in AP, H, J, and K and L
Yes.
classes?
About 40%, and I can get you the exact ones, I'm going to go from memory now. About 40% are in K, 9% are, 9 to 10 are in our special education L sort of a thing, although it's certainly not all students in our L class are in special education. And then the rest are in J, H, and AP. And I have to get those numbers to give you the exact,
breakout for it,
because
okay.
I looked at that.
Great. And what about electives? How are they considered under the new system? Because currently electives are not factored in with the weighted GPA, and here you have weighted all courses except PE, so how would an elective be treated?
It would be factored in like any other weighted course.
So, but where does it factor in? Does it factor in as
It factors in as a non-weighted.
A non-weighted.
Yeah, if it doesn't have a letter, it will not get, if it doesn't have a letter, it will not be multiplied by that factor, but it will enter into the weighted GPA.
so what factor is it multiplied?
It's not by one, really. It's just itself.
It's just whatever it is.
Yes, just whatever it is. So if you're taking intro to business, we don't have an intro to business J or K.
Let's say you get 100 on intro to business, it would be factored by 4.
Okay, so then there's no movement to restrict, entrance or admission to electives?
No.
Most schools do that, but
You know,
what
in
you need is that.
looking
I think
at
that's a great thing.
elective grades, our students do very well in electives, on all range of electives, whether it's dance, intro to business, or even probability. Students who are going into the electives are doing well.
Well, that was a huge weakness in the current system, that we don't calculate that. And then my other question is more towards Linda Gannon. How do colleges use the GPA in terms of, is this like a cutoff point? What is the approach? How would you view the impact on this?
No college will tell us specifically how they use a GPA because they want to tell us that they look at everything in the whole child. Now, if you're going to apply to Rutgers, Penn State, the Barnum schools have said to us, don't even bother sending recommendations. We don't read them. All we look at is the GPA and their SAT scores. The Ivies take all of the individual grades and put them into their own formulas, and those formulas are supposed to be top secret. They don't want the rest of us to know what particular formula they're using because they take not only grades and put them into a formula, but they take community service and give it a number. They take extracurricular activities and give it a number, and they call it AQ, an academic quotient sort of thing. They come up with one number, and that's how they define the children against each other. The majority of the schools where our kids are applying are going to be looking at both the weighted and the non-weighted. And I've had questions as to from various schools. the middle of the road, the competitive, the very competitive schools, as to how is it possible to have a weighted GPA that is less than non-weighted. And fortunately, I've known to tell them, yes, I agree with you, and that's under consideration right now. There's no doubt that in order to make our kids more competitive, and as I think we all well know, I am not particularly a number person, that's why Michael's standing out there so ably doing this. But the point is, we have to have our kids competitive with the kids from the other schools. And a non-weighted GPA that is higher than a weighted doesn't do our kids any good at all. And we have to work for those middle kids as well as the high and as well as the low. We have to make sure that we are making them as competitive and giving them as many chances as the kids from the other schools have. We, directors of guidance in the county and even outside the county, have a good network where we talk about what we do with all these things. And so we can say, how do you handle yours, or how do you handle this, AP classes, whatever it may be. And this is what they're doing because they know this is what is most fair for the kids.
Okay, no, just my comment is obviously we want to do everything we can, you know, for our students, and this is a very important, you know, factor in, you know, helping them.
Mike, I just had one question from last time. When you went and looked at these again, did you look for the outliers? And are there cases where we've got students in 2008 who this is going to lower their weighted GPAs?
Well, it's going, on average, it will lower their weighteds. It's a good question.
I mean, I'm
there will
just...
be kids. I'm just going to tell you, there will be kids where it will be lower.
In that context, though, then I'm just raising the question because, what was it, Tom, 2 years ago when we went to some change where we allowed kids to use one or the other system?
We tiered it, you're right.
Yeah.
November, I think, that we had a cutoff date. For doing it.
And I'm just, you know, because on one level, to me, it doesn't seem fair to kids who are working on college applications right now to say, yeah, you thought your weighted GPA was this, but you know we're actually shaving a few points off of it to help the other kids in the class.
They haven't gotten their GPAs yet.
Those kids know what their GPAs are, Linda. I knew what Barbara's was last year, long before the school ever told me. Those kids know what it is.
All it would take tomorrow is to push one button and we would have all the new GPAs computed and on the transcripts for the kids.
I know, but my point goes to, we are, as Tom and Mike have indicated, we are taking some kids and pushing that button is hurting them and lowering their college chances by lowering their weighted GPAs. And I'm asking the question of the board, is there a way for us to still address that and not hurt them, and should we be doing that?
Seems to me you've got a lot of play in the system that, you know, where did the number at the top of the first page, 1.025, 1.125, 1.225, and 1.325? If I said to you, I think it ought to be 1.5, 1.3, 1.45, how can you argue against my numbers?
I can't. I really can't.
Here's my point. My bottom line is that you have the ability to tune this thing, and I think if there are certain kids who are going to get damaged, you know, let's fine tune it a little bit.
Is there a way to do that, Mike?
I'll hit it tomorrow, I guess.
No,
you know?
it's more of I'm asking a question rather than, I'm not saying that those are the numbers, but I'm just saying that I don't think, if there are issues, we haven't heard about the issues, and if there are issues, somebody ought to take a look at it, as Peter said.
Another difference is obviously the proposed starts with L, and currently we don't. What is the advantage to starting with L?
Well, I'm biased. I'm in the math department. We work students in L math classes very hard. In fact, I randomly get students saying, "I'm in L math. Why is your math teacher working me so hard?" Well, because we work students hard, and I think because we work them hard, that's kind of like my little category that I think those kids, because we're teaching them core content standards and above, They're at the highest ever in our HES for passing for math. We're working real hard with these kids till from the first day to the last day. I just think they need an advantage too. They really do. And there's many of those students who they're in LMAT because they struggle with math, but they're in J English or J history, and why not help those kids a little bit too? In fact, they're all trying very hard, and it's frustrating. You know, I observe a lot more L classes than I do honors classes, and I see a lot of hard work going on, and I think that they do deserve some, something in terms of a wage.
Linda, you have a
question. So,
Excuse me, Rob.
Rob. I had 84 chemistry, right? My final grade, the 8 chemistry. So if my GPA was a 3.3, and it was weighting, maybe it would rise to a 3.1%, right? That's what we're talking about. But if the college still looks at the transcripts and sees Harvard's got an 84 in final grade of 8 million, right? The intention is to benefit the student, to give them some extra grading advantage because it's a hard subject, right? Because that's
Yes, that's what the levels are.
why would we just say that you got an 84, but that the weightedness that is transcript will show you got an 87?
That's another way to look at it. You know that.
Well, no. I mean, it's in the college is looking. Okay, Harvard's got an 84. His GPA unweighted is 3.3. Weighted because he took these courses, he has a 3.5. They still see he got an 84. So if you're trying to say there's a benefit to taking harder courses, why wouldn't the weighting go right into the grade itself and say, well, you got an 86?
Rob, Linda was about to say something.
Your comment, Linda?
I was going to say, first of all, that the colleges are looking, when they look at the transcript, they're looking at more than just the GPA. They are looking at the level of the classes the student takes. So if and they have said to us that a million times they will say they would rather see a B in an AP class than to see an A in a lesser, in a G, what we would call a J level class. They want to know that the kids are pushing themselves. So there are colleges, the larger colleges of Penn State or whatever, is going to look strictly at the numbers. The other colleges are going to look at the levels of the courses the kids are taking. What I originally was going to say, my concern is that this proposal was brought forth, I believe, in May, and a couple of times Michael was put on the back burner for other things. My greatest concern is that we have the class of 2008. This can't wait. Come September 1st, kids are going to start applying to colleges. We can't change their GPA once they set their transcripts out. We need to decide how we are going to fairly treat the class of 2008 and get their transcripts ready to go out come September 1st. And I'm really hoping that you will make a decision on this tonight, but it's going to be fair to the majority of our kids.
As a parent, thank you.
Linda, I'm glad you said that, because Michael, one of the things I didn't want to do is send you back to have to do a lot more work to try to come up with another system. But what I do want to do is understand from Dr. DeGancy, from you, Tom, and from you, Linda, that what is wrong with tiering this is we had done a couple of years ago, and say to the kids whose GPA would have been higher under the old system, that we're still going to report that as their weighted GPA.
I'm sorry, but I don't know what this tiering is. This was before my time.
Having choices.
Tom will tell us.
What happened was when we transitioned to the current system, those in the older system who had, I think you're talking about, they had a higher GPA. We allowed them up through, I'm saying November 30th, it could have been one of those dates, to use the older system, and then cut it off and went to the newer system after, I'm saying December 1st.
I think it was a December.
So colleges would have transcripts from students, different students that were computed in different ways from us.
Yes.
It was mostly the early
acceptance
admission students. We tiered it so that the early admission students wouldn't get hurt. Because if it had a negative impact on them, I think that's what Pete is referring to. So that was the tiering that we did. It was about, I thought it was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago.
No, I'm not familiar with this at all. And that was on a 9-point scale, correct? 9.0?
No,
So
no,
7
no.
point, I think at that point, the highest was
Which the college has said
7.55.
is really out of their realm of expertise, because that gets a little too crazy. They understand a 5.3 because of the weight. But
We were the only school to probably have that 7
I
point
would
something
imagine.
system. That's why we went to another system.
I guess the question is, can it be tiered?
We can do it in the computer, sure. Yes, we can.
Then the question for you guys is, should it be, or am I going in the wrong direction? I need educational
what does
professionals.
tiering do?
What it does is, to my mind, and tell me if I'm wrong to be looking at this, I'm taking kids who've been working here for 3 years and who are sitting home tonight, and they and their parents know what their weighted GPA is, and you're going to push the button tomorrow, and they're going to have a lower weighted GPA. And they're going to say, I just thought I was getting into such and such college, but now instead of a 4.7, I've only got a 4.6.
No college would ever deny a kid based upon a .1.
But
That's a-
maybe it's not a point.
Maybe
it's
I
half a
picked the
point.
wrong numbers, but I mean, we are telling kids that we're willing now, after you've worked here for 3 years, to shave your GPA.
We're talking
And I have a
about
question
kids
about the
top.
fairness of that.
What about the rest of the kids? I want to be fair to them too. That's
I do too, but I guess my question is it fair to one group to pay for the other group? And I don't know the answer to that. And maybe that's the tough decision we have to make if you're going to sit there and tell us, no, you can't do this, or no, you shouldn't do this.
Peter, your question is also hypothetical too. It's possible that, that it might not change.
No, Michael
Michael
has said
That's
it
true,
will.
that's true.
It's
I
not
stand corrected.
hypothetical.
You're
There's no
right, you're
doubt.
right,
There'll
you're
be
right,
some
you're right.
kids that
Yes,
change.
you did say that. You did
Not
say
all.
that.
No.
They're not all. But there'll be some kids out there that will change, and
When you take 483
you're
of
gonna
our
find
kids,
them.
you get a 0.5 differential to the advantage of all. When you take, as we indicated, well, not in that slide, our top 20 kids, it's a 0.02 advantage. It doesn't go up as quite as much, obviously.
So,
Well-
Sandy,
Dealing with what Peter has been talking about, and I do remember, instead of calling it tiers, we had 2 systems. And whichever was more advantageous, the youngsters were allowed to put
That's right,
that
Sandy.
system on their transcript. And they had a cutoff date. But out of your computer, you can go System A, System B. You're not going to erase it, are you, Michael? Right? They'll both be there. And if one shows up to an advantage of a senior who's putting their application in, they can put out of GPA old system. If it's more advantageous, because we're trying to give them the advantage, new system, more advantageous, then theirs comes out of the new system. So it's just a matter of using in transition. It'll end, but just as we transition, rather than pulling the rug out, as Peter is saying, and having them wake up tomorrow or when this thing happens and say, whoops, you just shaved me down to a different grade point average than I thought, you can say, okay, if yours is advantageous to go in the old one, you will use the old one until such and such date.
And
After
do
such
we
date.
indicate to the colleges that we're doing that?
They don't know which system you're on. They don't know whether an 83 is this or not. Every school has a slightly different way, so
Right.
what difference does it make to the college? And as you said, they're not really going to look at just GPA. It's just one little part. But I think what Peter was concerned about is having these kids disappointed when they expected this number and suddenly they had that number. And
So
it does,
our profile would then reflect both scales.
whichever scale you're sending in is what
So we'd have to have 2 different profiles.
I'm afraid you would until that cutoff date.
Oh, the profile is the snapshot of the school that explains all the APs, the SATs, the way the GPA is determined, the difference among all the classes. So we would have 2
You'd have to say, and we have just instigated a new, yes, we've instigated a new GPA, and this youngster, this is the old GPA that this youngster is going under, and as November 30th, we will all be under the new system. And we're allowed to transition. Everything in this world changes, And the only thing I think we're trying to do is help those youngsters who would be lowered and disappointed and might be hurt by it. Just for, 2-3 months?
I think you're probably talking about a few students.
Maybe five kids.
Not a lot. And for those students, it would be to their advantage to be able to have their
Old system.
selection. But to the point that Michael was making, and a number have made, overall, this is going to help out a lot of the students and makes a lot of sense.
And it's a fairer system.
Fair representation is great, so. Laura, you had
No, I wanted to hear Linda's answer to that, and then I just had another thought.
I'm trying to get my mind around going out now and getting 2 profiles printed
I mean, does-
and the whole thing.
Well,
would
did-
go, Lynn.
and-
I'm
No,
thinking
no,
much
no,
more
no,
the
no.
logistics of this
And,
than.
and aside, I mean, to colleges, does that make us look flaky
Well,
as a
see, this is what
district?
I'm wondering too.
You know, if
How
we're
are the
almost
colleges
sending out
going to
2
take
profiles?
things, or to see a kid who comes in under one and a kid who comes in under another. Yeah, see, I don't
You know,
like
is that undermining,
Same
overall?
school, one's choosing the old, one's choosing the new. Well, why? What's better about the old for this kid and what's better about the new for this one?
It's a
I
math-
just wonder if we're creating questions in their mind that are going to make them look a little askew.
Well, then frankly, shouldn't we introduce this for the freshmen then?
Oh, dear God, I'm going to go through 3 more years of hurting our little kids. No, we can't do that.
Do you
I just don't
remember,
follow your logic.
Tom, do you remember
I don't
how we
either.
did it when we did, you could choose either the weighted or the non-weighted? How did we send a profile into colleges?
What we would do is we established a cutoff date. We had the old profile for those students who were going early and who had an advantage under the old system. In this case, it's very few, but there were some, and I think that's what Pete's referring to. And then right after that date, let's say it was November 30th, and by that time, we usually had the new profiles. When do we get the new profiles? By October 15th, November?
No, I usually have them earlier.
Okay, whenever we get them, after that date, we just put the new ones in when the bulk of our kids go. Now, we can look at the date that we used,
Sure.
the drop dead date. And I think that's what Pete's referring to, so that the old kids, not the old kids, the kids who may lost the 1/10 of a point don't get hurt. But by and large, most of the kids who gain get that advantage. I think that's what you're saying.
That's what I'd like to see.
not to throw a fly in the ointment on this, but there are some kids that may do early application that would benefit from the new approach, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And would they then be able to use the new approach for that?
I would dare say, yeah, I would propose that we do.
So that's okay, so then,
But is there damage to our reputation, to admissions officers if we're presenting them with 2 separate systems?
We did it 2 years ago.
Not 2 years ago, this is totally new to me.
Then maybe 3 years ago?
Was it 3 years ago?
Let's go back
Okay.
4, because I don't know this at all.
it was 4, I think it was 4.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know this.
But I don't think there was subterfuge. I think, that we put it out there, we're transitioning. I don't think we lost because they saw us making a transition.
Does somebody want to try to craft a motion on this at this point in time?
Well, how about, probably,
Do you want me to try,
Rob,
Sandy?
you could do it, couldn't you, Rob? Couldn't you craft this motion? That we accept the GPA system as presented?
Let's hear
Oh,
Mr.
Peter likes it,
I can
okay.
record, Mr. Powell.
Resolved, presumably on the recommendation of the superintendent, that we adopt a new weighted grade point average system as proposed to us by Mr. DeLassio and Dr. DeGancy, and that for the seniors of the class of 2008, we will transition into this new grade point average system. Do we need to say anything more in
With
the
the date to be
resolution itself?
established?
I don't know that we can establish the date tonight.
And a date to be specified.
To be established.
With a date to be specified, is that enough to,
I think it's broad enough.
pardon?
I know what it means.
We have a motion. Does everybody understand the motion? As much as...
I think only, you're saying with the date to be specified, well, I guess what we'll do is specify.
For the end of the transition period where you could have a choice
Yeah,
of
that's
which
what's
of the
missing.
two to use.
A date to be specified for the ending of the
For the end
choice.
of the transition period in which, before which the students would have the opportunity to choose one or the other systems.
It says that. It's wordy, but it says it.
Does everybody agree with that
Will you second
motion?
Yeah, I'm adding to it
Wait,
as
Does everybody understand it?
Bob's still writing.
Do you want to read it back to us?
Tim's still writing too, so we're going to have stereo motions.
Okay, I think I have the motions, and you made the motion.
Yeah. We haven't gotten a second, but can you read
Yeah,
back the
I
motion so we can make sure the person who seconds it knows what they're seconding also?
So we try. Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent that we adopt a new weighted GPA as presented by administration.
It should just be
Is it weighted or both?
Both. It's a
Both.
new
It's
GPA
weighted and
system-
unweighted.
New GPA system.
A new GPA system, right?
System as presented by administration. And seniors for 2008 will transition into the system with a date to be determined for the end of the transition period, before which students have the option to choose one system or the other.
And after that
Says it.
date, they'll only have one choice. Right?
For all other grades, then, this is just a question. The other grades really have no option.
Right.
Can we get a second on this motion?
Yes, we did.
We have a second. Now we can, we need to speak.
I do have one question. Mike, on the first page, in an H class, an A is worth 5.30. What do some other schools have at that top, as that top number? Are we in the middle, or are we a little higher?
We're about where everybody is. Yeah,
Is that
we're
reasonable?
about where everybody is. 5.2, 5 point, yeah, we're not
anybody-
seeing anything above a 6.
Does anybody go as high as 5.5?
I think West Morris Mendham did.
So my question again is, why don't we have a scale that puts a 5.5 at the top right, 5.0, you know, why don't we just put a 0.5 difference across there? And I know there's no way to answer this scientifically, but if it's reasonable, why not push it up just a little bit? Well, tell me why not.
I have no response, I don't know.
Then you agree.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Bernie,
Can we go ahead and vote on this motion, and then we maybe make a change later on? But are you proposing that we hold off on this motion?
No, I would like to find out from Mike, is there any reason that we shouldn't change this table to 5.5?
You can have whatever number you want. I've kind of.
Paul, my question is,
It's what's reasonable.
if we don't ask this question now, it's going to get locked in concrete, and then we'll never come back to the question.
Well,
Bernie,
the
if I
only
could
choice we have is
respond
to
to
defer
that.
the decision on this.
No, I don't want to defer the decision, but I'd like to hear from them. What do they think?
Okay.
I don't think it would have.
If I could respond, and I think the difference in this is not, you could go to 5.5, 5.7, 5.9, whatever we want to do. The difference among the top, we're only talking the top here, the top 20 or 30, is not a matter of Calc AB, it's not a matter of History AB versus History J versus History H. What it is are the electives. When they're put into this, that has a negligible impact on it. Some 0.1 going up a little, some 0.1 going down. So you can, whatever system you want here, it's not going to have an impact, because if a kid had a 93 in ceramics and another kid had a 95, that may be enough, and I haven't done the math, to push it 0.002 to have an impact. It is the courses in there on the weighted that weren't used before. Other schools are used to doing that. For us, it's something new that we're going to have to get used to. So, Bernie, to respond to your question, we can put whatever number we want there. It's everything else.
I don't
It's not
want
gonna have an
to.
impact.
I don't want to hold it back to decide that, but I certainly want to leave you the option of modifying this by a small amount, to like the top numbers 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5.
Would,
Bernie, if I may. I'm just going to suggest that, as to Tom's point, you know, the major change we're here making is getting the electives and things into this. I agree that things can be tweaked. I do have some degree of confidence, though, that between Mike and Linda Gannon, that if we try this for a year and it needs to be tweaked, it's not going to be a 4-month discussion next year. It's going to be, this is what the numbers came. We won't put Mike off 7 times. We'll only put him off 4 times, and then maybe we can tweak it that way. That's what I'd suggest.
You just said something that struck me. Did you just say that we just put the electives in? Were the electives not in our?
Not in the weighted.
Not in the weighted.
Yes, that's correct.
They weren't in the weighted, and now they are in the weighted. That's a very major philosophical change. I'm not going to open that Pandora's box, but man, that's a big change.
That's how we get the increase.
Oh yeah, that's how you get it. Because kids are doing well in our elective program. They really are.
All right, we have a
But
motion.
I'm sorry, back to Bernie's situation, I think that, it would be, we should look at this at the end of the year, and evaluate, how the program went, rather than,
Okay.
letting it go.
Set in concrete.
Michael, you can play chess again at the end of the year.
Absolutely.
Bernie, do you want to vote on this? Elvis has left the theater.
We still have,
We need him gone.
Did we just lose Bernie? I have to turn around. I don't
You
know
know
what's
what,
going
we
on.
still
Right
have-
now,
We
we still have
Well-
a quorum. We can go ahead and have a vote on this, but why don't we can wait 1 minute for him to return.
Yeah, we're going to have to
You
do
want
as
us
the
to
kids
move
do.
on?
May I leave the room now? You
Yeah.
say, no, not right now.
Mike,
No,
Well,
just
you know what,
can we ask Mike to talk about it?
Yeah, why don't we have a motion and a second on this thing.
Can I also make there was another comment I had meant to make during discussion, and I don't want to make more confusion here and add another thing, but it was something that was discussed at the curriculum committee meeting, in terms of the letter designation on the classes, to changing, at least the designation in terms of what it's called, rather than LKJ, for example, in the what it is in the report card. Accelerated college prep is J. College prep is K, standard is L, or basic is M. Just have it reflect what the courses are, because J doesn't really mean anything, K doesn't really mean anything. But that is time for that's a lot to bite off, and that's for another discussion. I just wanted to bring
Get that
that
out
for
there.
for everybody here.
Bernie has returned. We have a motion. We didn't actually vote on it yet, so we have
Waited
a,
for
And I'm
you.
going to vote yes.
we have a
That's fine.
we have a motion and a second. If there's no other discussion, this isn't a roll call vote, is it?
It should be a roll call.
Okay,
vote.
we'll make it a roll call vote. Can you take the roll call?
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Ms. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz? No. Ms. Mandel?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes. What were the votes? Can you tell me?
We have 6 for, 1 against, so motion carries.
Okay. Motion carried. All right. We'll move on to
We do this every 3 years. See you next time.
can we move on to the schedule status, and Mike, can you update us on that?
Sure. We have been working on the schedule for a good month now, since the last board meeting. I just want to update you on where we are. We started using Schedule Pro as our software to schedule the entire school. This is a really good piece of software that helps us even out classes, remove conflicts from students, optimize where to place classes based on numbers of kids. It's a scheduling program. It's used for the NFL and all kinds of stuff, so it could be good for us, hopefully. So we did have to go back to hand scheduling. What hand scheduling is sitting with the department supervisor and saying, well, I want a Fine Arts 1 class period 3 because of a room issue or something like that. And that took place with the entire Fine Arts department because of the fact that we had over 300 oversubscribed kids to classes like video production and photography. So we had to make sure that we had rooms available for those classes, so we couldn't have 3 of those classes scheduling out at the same period because we just couldn't put the kids in the room then. So we did have to hand schedule fine arts. We did have to hand schedule the 3-day science block linked with the 2-day PE. That's for all science classes that have a lab or using the 3-day block, which we did last year. Those all have to be hand scheduled. We have to make sure if we're going to have a Monday, Tuesday, Friday, that the PE, there's an opening for PE, say for 11th grade on Tuesday, Thursday. That does take some time, and I can work with Mario and Jeff on that, as well as Judy with fine arts. And the traditional PE was also, that is for students who do not have a lab-based science, but still have to take PE. That science is not linked to PE, so we call it traditional. That's what we named it this year. And we had to hand schedule that because we had to make sure Mario had enough staff to get kids into these classes and be taught. So the rest of the schedule, math, history, English, float around the hand scheduled portion. So where I want Algebra 2 classes, they go wherever the computer tells it to go. Eventually, you can play with it all day, and at some point you have to hand it to the counselors, and we did probably around 2.5 to 3 weeks ago, and the counselors resolve schedule conflicts. That is, there's a student has a conflict with electives, they can't get in because there's too many kids, or it's butting up against a regular ed class or a core class. That's where the counselor gets involved, and they've been working on that. And they're done with that. Correct, Ms. Gannon? They're done with, counselors are done resolving conflicts. For now, at least. We really looked at flexibility with this schedule. It's not the rotating drop, so it's not as flexible as it can be, but we tried to look at flexibility. We looked at making it student-oriented, making sure we had enough sections of core classes, enough sections of electives so we can maximize the student choices. We looked and, supervisors look and see how many kids want certain electives, and we build the number of sections based on that. We just don't say we want 5 sections. If we can get to 10 to get all the kids in, we do that. We have to make some tough choices on what not to run and what to run. Those are all tough, but they're based on enrollment. Enrollment at all levels is capped at 25, except the L and the SE classes and some fine arts classes where we just don't have the capacity to have 25 students, or computer-based classes where we don't have 25 computers in a classroom. Students scheduled for 3 out of 4 of their elective choices, 75% of their elective choices they got. So I think that's pretty flexible. It's not bad when we turned it over to guidance. The components of it were, everybody got their core courses. Math, of course math is up there first, science, English, social studies, world language, PE, arts. We made sure they got their core. We can't say to a student, you can't get PE this year, sorry. They need PE. So we have to make sure they get that. We ratchet up the priority on those courses using the software. It gets them in. Elective program was strong. We're filled to the brim in our elective program. We really are. There's no room there. We do have study halls. I'll be assembling them tomorrow. Kids will be in study halls. It's unfortunate it happens. Tom will talk about the lunches a little bit. And we went off and we had equity in the lunches, but didn't end up like that eventually, but we'll manage. We worried about class size and where we needed, we put the class size up. There was no even discussion with the supervisors. We're just going to put it up. We got to get the kids in there, and we did it. We did this on an as-need basis. And the PE science block really worked nicely this year. They dovetailed each other. When the kids scheduled out for PE, they were linked right into or scheduled out for science. They dovetailed and linked right into the PE. It was real nice, and we made sure that we have grade-specific PEs for mixed science classes, such as an AP chemistry, where we may have sophomores and juniors in it. We made sure that we dovetailed those sophomore and junior PE blocks at the same time. What we're going to do tomorrow is basically we're going to put in study halls. We're going to do a little work with health, and we're going to roll it over, and we're going to start printing student schedules and have them out by the mailing this week. I will say this on a personal level, this was probably it was very tough to do this. All the supervisors came through, Tom, Linda, every administrator came through. We had a lot of late nights. We had a lot of angry nights and a lot of shouting too. And it was good, but we got it done. And I think the kids will have good schedules this year. You know, I think we did a good job for them. We really did.
May I just say that I received a letter today from the gentleman from Sassy that Mike worked with, and he wanted us to know that he was tremendously impressed with Mike's grasp of the software and his understanding of what needed to be done in order to make the master
Don't say
schedule
that too
work.
loud.
You can do it again next year, Mike.
Our support system, which we pay for, was very good. They were excellent, and they were well worth their money.
Do you have any questions?
Just one quick question. Just next year, in terms of doing a schedule, just having lived through this, do we need a technology coordinator next year, or do we need some other person to be able to do this?
Well,
or is it something you envision doing again?
Oh, I don't even, I don't know about that. But, if Tom comes calling, I'm usually there,
We'll make recommendations
But
to them.
I will say the technology guys, I think they're Brian and Dan were great too. Actually, Tom Douglas gave me some advice too. I called him up in the middle of the day, so I hit him up for some stuff too. Everybody really worked hard on it. I don't think anybody, Brian back there laughing, but everybody worked really hard on it. It was something that we did, I think as a big team this year, which was nice.
Thank you, Mike.
Any other questions? All right, cafeteria seating and table design.
Mine's going to be very quick. Thanks to the kindness of the board, we were able to buy 72 new tables for the cafeteria in the south building with the appropriate chairs, and 30 rolling tables for Gym 7 area, which is wonderful. The tables in the south cafeteria, now you see the green areas over here? As we move into the rotating drop areas, those are where kids will be able to eat. But for now, we can handle the kids in the south cafeteria, in Gym 7-8, in the north cafeteria, and in room 106. Now, we are wonderfully scheduled A and C lunch, both south and north cafeteria. What tended to happen, B lunch, was we capped it at 600. And Lynn would come to me, Tom, can we go to 650? Okay, we can handle 650. And then I went away for a couple days, and I came back, and it was capped a little higher than 650. The reason was we needed to get kids in classes, whether it be the core classes that were scheduled during that period or their elective classes. We couldn't turn away the kids. So B lunch in the south building is very tough. It's over 750 kids. So what we will do, they will eat in the south cafeteria, they will eat in Gym 7-8. Fortunately, we have a patio area, which is wonderful. We can get 400 kids out there, about 40 to 50 to 60 kids out there throughout the year. Now, what is interesting is right next to the south cafeteria, we have, remember the old senior lounge? Well, we're not going to eat in there. What we're going to do is it's going to be a serving area for our students. And the students can again, it's grab and go stuff, it's pizza, it's hamburgers, it's hot dogs, it's sandwiches that are pre-made. They can get that, and then they can go either in the south cafeteria eat, or they can go into Gym 7-8 and eat. There'll be tables there for them. A and B, C lunch are okay. We probably can handle all kids in the south and all kids in the north cafeteria. But B lunch, we're really going to be moving kids into the south, into Gym 7-8, into Gym 106, room 106, and the north cafeteria. What we will do, we'll have the new chairs and tables probably by the end of September. And then what we will do, we will take out the good chairs and tables that are in the South Caf that we've had for years, and we'll put them into 106. We'll take out the really bad tables in the North Cafeteria and chuck them, as they should have been done, and we'll have virtually 4 areas where we'll have wonderful tables and wonderful chairs. Now, one of the problems you have, and I think Rob talked about it, is getting kids through the line quickly. In the South Cafeteria, what we have done is made 2 new serving areas. When you walk into the south and head to the serving areas, on the far left, you have a new service area, and on the far right, which is grab and go stuff. Kids can get pizza there, they can get their Snapple, they can get sandwiches on either side. They can go into the senior lounge and grab and go. In the North Cafeteria, we've created another area where the old scullery used to be. It's straight ahead. That area will be a grab and go area, so there'll be a normal serving in the North Cafeteria, and then they can grab and go to the left of it if they wish. So we hope to get kids moving quickly through the lines. And to boot, last year, if you recall, we started as Rob said, the debit service. Kids can put money into an account, give their ID, and they, their meal is paid for. Well, we're starting that in the beginning of September. In our mailings that we'll mail out at the end of this week, we have a letter in it explaining the system, where they can pay for it. Anne Marie Zampella, who's the head of our cafeteria, will be collecting money the first week and the second week of school, and we'll take money throughout September. Back to school night is a wonderful time to do that too, and that'll facilitate. Once all the kids get their ID cards, they can just swipe. Until they get their ID cards, they just give their ID number, and it's taken care of. So we hope that again, we started this in March of last year, not a lot of time. Hitting the ground running in September, I think will facilitate and expedite a more efficient cafeteria program. So this is what we're looking at now. Again, A and C lunch, fine. B lunch, south, which is our 10th, 11th, and 12th grade lunch areas. It's heavy, but we'll work it. And for the first couple weeks, since we won't have the new tables, we'll put some of the old tables in gym 7 and 8 and pull down the stands as of last year.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions?
Thank you.
How big was our big lunch this year?
Our big lunch, we had a small lunch A in both. B and C, both were over 600. Now, thank God, A and C are fine, but B has taken up, unfortunately, the bulk of the lunches. So we're going to have to work it, and we will, as we always do. Pete?
Tom, one question. I think back in July when Dr. Rader was still acting as our interim, I forget whether it was to the Finance Committee or to the whole board, we talked about 2 different figures, one for buying tables if we were keeping the same schedule, and the other for buying tables if we were going to the rotating drop single lunch. And my recollection is that it was more like the 37 or some odd thousand for just keeping what we had, and like 50 some odd thousand for going to others. Maybe I might be wrong on those figures though. I see now we're planning on, you're asking us to approve buying the 50 some odd thousand dollars worth of tables, but I also saw that you showed us a lot of green areas to be used for lunch next year that are not going to be used for lunch this year. So my question is, in addition to these $50,000 of tables, are you coming back to us next year to ask for more tables to do next year?
Yes.
Okay, and do we have any idea yet what that figure would be? Since up until now, we thought this was the figure.
No, it all depends on numbers, really. I mean, number of the students that's what determined what we had to get now. The number of kids, the seats that you need to feed all the kids.
So if we're talking about going from a maximum of 750 to a maximum of 2,300, we're talking about buying how many tables in addition to this 50,000?
You know, again, it also depends on what kind of tables we plan on getting. I mean, the tables we're getting for the gymnasium are more expensive because they have the table and the chairs. Depends on where we're going to put them. You know, if the south cafeteria that he's talking about has just the tables and individual chairs, which are much cheaper. But the gymnasium has the more expensive variety. So.
And next year, when we're talking about putting people in those green areas that are not dedicated eating areas, we're going to be talking about more rolling tables with these very high prices, basically.
Could be. I mean, if that's what we're planning.
Okay.
Pete, I will be able probably in the early, as we're creating the budget, to get a number in terms of what would be the most efficient use. How many more tables we need?
Thank you.
Any other questions? This is a motion that's going to come back as the tables is D7. It was on the original agenda, but it's a revised motion with the dollar amount. With that, I think we can move on to the first opportunity for public comment. On agenda topic items, there will be another second time for the public to talk.
I just would like to say something.
Could you come? What I need you to come. We need your name and address.
Sure. I'm Diane Wilson, and I live at 23 Briarwood Drive East in Warren. And actually, I had a whole list of notes, which I don't have to go through because of the passing of the motion. I want to thank everyone involved who supported this process and who worked so hard. We should be on a first-name basis because of my daughter in the math. I just want to say, we went on the road to look at colleges. My daughter's going to be a senior. And we are racing against the clock, waiting to see what was going to happen here. And what I want you all to know is that when we left, she had reaches, she had matches, and she had safeties. And what we're hearing on the road is that, my back is to everybody, I really don't do that, I'm loud enough anyway. What we were hearing on the road is that the reaches were beyond reach, the matches became reaches, the safeties became matches. Because when you would go to a place like Northeastern, for the class of '06, they admitted 47%. For the class of '07, they were admitted 39%. You went to the University of Massachusetts, 5,000 more applications. Right now, what we are hearing is that this class of 2008, it is going to be the toughest time in many, many years for these kids to get into school. I have a child who was in this majority, who we already had many sleepless nights trying to figure out where she was going to get in with solid SAT scores. And what I want you all to realize as a parent, we're not just a chart, but this really was reality. And I can go home now and say to my daughter, I'm going to get upset because this is just so difficult, that she can get in where she wants to go.
Thank you.
You have no idea how hard this has been. And,
rarely have we gotten such a emotional response from any of our resolutions.
Well, Jay Wilpon has known me for years. I was very involved with the K-8 Board of Ed. Peter does. This is the first high school Board of Ed meeting I've ever come to because I was so passionate about this and was ready to make a speech. You would have really seen a mess. And I just want to say thank you because this is critical. You have done so much for the kids, and we really appreciate it by that vote. But it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for all the support from Guidance and Mike and everybody else. Thank you.
Any other public comment at this time? That was very impressive. With that, we can move on. Do we have other comments? All right. With that, we'll move on to board discussion. There were 5 items on the list under board discussion. We've covered 2 of those. The revised GPA reporting system and the opt-out. I would propose that without Fran being here, going into a detailed discussion tonight on the goals and board goals, starting at 9:30 is probably not the thing for us to do. It better be for us to wait till the next meeting. We did have a request from Jerry Binder that we complete that by September the 30th so we can go through and make sure that we start our evaluations the way we'd like to. I'll come back to the first item there, which is the board meeting dates. policies, I didn't really have anything formal on policies to talk about, other than there, as you know, there are a number of items on there. When we get to that motion, we will pull the first one, which is the adoption resolution. We're not quite ready to do that yet, but that's, I'll mention that at the time when we go ahead and make that resolution, okay? Did anybody else have anything else they wanted to bring up on policy at this point in time?
Paul, I've got comments on several of them, but
Okay.
it may be better just to give you my written comments.
Yeah, why don't you give us the written comments? If they're minor, we will just bring them back as minor comments and vote on them the second time. But if they're major, then we'll go ahead and pull it. We'll go ahead and do the first reading, and we'll pull them, and then
That's fine.
they won't make it to the second reading. Okay? So with that, then, can we just spend a few minutes? We had talked about the possibility of meetings in September. We were shooting for a September the 5th executive session that we would have just devoted to construction for the purposes of going into some more detail on what we're doing with regard to construction. And then the other two meetings, we've had a conflict with really Jerry Binder and his schedule with regard to Greenbrook in the meetings, and we're just trying to move those around a little bit. I was wondering if, does everybody have any issues with regard to September the 5th? Can we agree on September the 5th?
Paul, can I ask you a question first? Could you just remind us, we do have meetings scheduled in September, and we're looking to change them, and
The meetings, as I know it, are scheduled for the 17th and the 4th.
okay.
The 4th?
I think it was scheduled.
That's where the originally noticed ones from
Third is-
last April.
Right.
Third is Labor Day.
That's right.
Third is Labor Day, and the first meeting was on the 4th, and the second meeting, I believe, was on the 17th, which is different than what's on the calendar. I realize that, okay?
And I think Fran had suggested basically pushing them back, both back by about a week, just because we had this meeting late in August, and there was going to be the interruption in October, early October around the convention, when we won't be able to have a meeting, so that rather than having a great big period of time between September 17th and when we meet in October, that I think that was the genesis of her suggestion of moving them back a week.
So with that, if you have filled out the dates on the sheet, what we can do is we can pass it in terms of what dates you are available. I will tell you, I think the most probable dates are the 12th, although I understand that may be a conflict with Rosh Hashanah in the evening.
It's out.
Jerry said it might be okay, so
Oh, I don't, knowing Jerry's family, I don't think so.
I left that in.
The eve of Rosh Hashanah is not a time.
Then the only other date after that then would be the 26th of September. So if you can write in when you think are acceptable dates, we will then take a look at that and publish that starting,
So you're trying to get away from the 4th and the 17th?
yeah.
And the 17th is not still, why is the 17th not still viable, even though the 4th?
Well, because if we were going to move the meeting from the 4th to the next week,
10th
the
or-
10th, 11th, or 12th, then it didn't make sense to have another meeting the week after that. So we were going to move that meeting to the next week, which would have been the week of the 24th. And that would then give us good proximity to the meeting in October so we'd have basically meetings about every 2 weeks is what we were shooting.
Is the 24th a conflict for Jerry with it? I
Yeah.
don't think so. Greenbrook meets that late?
But why wouldn't they just move their meetings to accommodate us?
That's a fair enough question, but that wasn't one that we had the option of asking them at that point in time. So
Oh, you can
we're
still
trying
ask
to,
it.
because we were moving meetings around, this seemed to be, we were going to have a discussion and see if we could come up with a date tonight.
So you're saying the 24th is their meeting and that is no good?
He did not give this as a date. 24th is out.
But okay, so the 25th is still an option?
Right.
So it sounds to me like the options would be the 10th and the 11th. The 12th has to be out. That would be total disrespect. You can't do that. And then the 25th would be the second meeting. Are those the dates you're looking for then?
We could go for the 25th or the 26th.
Yeah. Or the 26th?
The 11th is out because of the problem with celebrations for the, or not celebrations, but remembrances for the 9/11.
Oh. Oh, so the 11th is out. So the 10th is the only real night.
But that's a Greenbrook meeting.
Well, you've left nothing in the first 2 weeks then.
Yes.
You're saying the 11th is out, I'm saying the 12th is out, and you're saying the 10th is a conflict with Greenbrook?
That's the Greenbrook conflict.
So that the 10th, 11th, and 12th are all out,
Yeah, that's what I ran into.
as is the 13th is out too, because that is Rosh Hashanah.
So you have 11th
So that
and
whole
12th.
week is out.
So we can go back, we could schedule it for the 11th?
Or we
If
could
that would be
schedule it for the
board.
10th.
Or we could do it for the 10th, and
And
Jerry
leave-
just wouldn't be able to be there.
Uh-huh.
Well, they changed their meeting.
Or they would change their meeting.
I would urge us not to, and September 11th is an important day, but if we were having some kind of a service, I would see it. Otherwise, I don't think businesses will be closed, and I don't think school will be closed, and I don't think we should be closed. You know,
So we have-
if our students come to
It gets down to a
school.
personal level at that
Yeah,
point, so I'm not
so
going
we
to
have
comment.
we have the 10th and the 11th, and then we have the 20, I have the 25th as the date, I think, he has it as open. We have it the 25th or 26th for September.
And Jerry is available on the 25th
He is
and
available on the
26th.
25th and 26th, so.
You know, the other alternative might, and I'll just throw this out, is there, maybe, if we're gonna have, if we have a chance of getting Gary here, maybe we should stick with the 5th, or the 4th or the 5th, or and the 17th that we originally had, and bear through the problem with when the October meeting will be. I don't know. Tim, do you have a?
I mean, I don't have really a preference. I was just, Bob and I were just kind of discussing the possibility of one meeting, but I'd probably prefer, not that I love meetings, but I would probably prefer two, especially because it's the beginning of the year.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I think, I don't know the particulars of Fran's issue. When I was talking to Fran about the 4th, I know there was something on that date. I know there was.
I think that's no good for her.
Okay.
I think
So
that we
was
would
the
like
issue.
to,
Here.
Okay.
why don't we just say we're going to do them on the 10th and the 25th, all right? That avoids the problem with the 11th. I understand it conflicts with Jerry, but at least we have the two meetings separated.
10th and 24th.
10th and 25th, does that work?
It works for me.
I didn't think that
So
Does it work for
one
you,
of the
Bernie?
problems was we didn't want to have two meetings
2 weeks in a row.
a week in a row. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but.
Sandy's the 10th and the
I'm
25th?
sorry, but I have my calendar at home.
Okay. Peter?
But first thing when I get home, I'll look.
10th and the 25th.
Yeah, but what's wrong with the 24th?
Jerry had a conflict with the Greenbrook Board on that.
All right, how about the Greenbrook Board moving their meeting?
Peter, we're not discussing the Greenbrook Board
Well,
moving
then-
something. We're
Pete-
discussing whether or not we can meet on the 25th.
Pete,
Can you meet on
I
the
don't know.
25th?
I don't.
Pete,
Okay.
just, the suggestion is we have one of those meetings, one of the two, not on the same date as the Greenbrook meetings, because we're moving both of ours. And
Oh, the 10th is the
If you're
Greenbrook-
not available, I understand. but-
And the 10th is their Greenbrook meeting too?
The 10th is a
It's
Greenbrook
a Greenbrook
meeting.
meeting.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Right.
Well, sometime, I will say that previously, the Greenbrook person came to this meeting,
Yes.
since he was a singleton,
Not
and the board
disagree.
existed without the
I
representative.
understand that.
So he might be willing to do that if we're in a bind.
This one and this one.
But if we can agree on the 10th and the 25th.
If it works for everybody, of course, yeah.
And then can we agree on the 5th as a special meeting, executive session only for the purposes of discussion construction?
And then we read it.
Calendar, I'll call you in the morning.
Yeah, that doesn't work so well for me either.
That doesn't work well for you?
Oh, well, it's different than dates.
I'm not sure that'll be good for Fran either, the
The
5th.
dates that was on there. So it's like 15.
All right, we'll discuss.
She had that on the sheet.
She had that as a date that
She
would
did?
be acceptable for her.
Rob, can you make the 5th?
Can you make the 5th, Rob?
Mm-hmm.
Can you make the 5th?
Yeah.
Can you
That's
make the
tough,
5th?
though, Rob, that would be tough.
What?
Not you, Rob, that Rob.
Oh,
This is really, for the purposes, it's one meeting, it is for the purposes of discussing construction. That's it.
So it won't
So
be
it'll be-
a fuller agenda, it'll just be.
It'll be, no, one topic. It's only executive session. And
On the 5th.
For the purpose of discussing construction. All right, let's pick that date. Laura, you're not going to be available that
No,
day?
I don't think.
Mr. President, can we sum all this up? We have, I know we have the 5th.
5th for the executive session for construction, 10th and 25th.
But is
Somebody's
that,
not going to like it, but that's okay.
are we going to move in that direction? Just so I know to make the notices and whatnot. We are going to do that.
Yes, can I get a motion and a second that we'll meet on the 5th for executive session, the 10th for a regular session, and the 25th for regular session?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Since I don't know, I'm not putting my foot in this one. But you'll miss me if I can't make it, right? Well, I
Can I
may
get
bring
a
a motion
second?
that you change the dates if I find I can't. I tell Jerry to come.
Well,
It's
I
very
can't
hard
promise-
when you
I
change
can't promise
dates.
you that those are the dates that we're moving to, unless we can get a second on this and get a vote.
If
Could
we
could I
don't,
make a suggestion here? If we don't have that we let Irene, who is our,
We were going to try to close it tonight is what we were going to try to do.
I know you'd like to, but I'm so sorry I didn't bring the calendar.
Well, we're going to propose these dates. Irene will publish them, and if you have some problems with them, send her back an email and tell her we cannot make them on those dates, okay? If you, particularly the 5th, if you could propose an alternative date for that, I'd appreciate it, okay? So that Laura could possibly attend. So we're not moving to that date, we cannot publish them yet,
No.
all right? Until we can
Probably do the
finalize that
24th.
decision. How do we finalize that decision if we don't have a board meeting?
Well,
What do we need, a quorum to do the dates? We
Yeah.
can get a quorum during the day just to do that.
We need a quorum.
If you need a quorum, well, we could pull together a quorum for a 2-minute meeting, just establish dates.
a special meeting to establish dates of meeting.
You might have to.
I
You may have
I
to.
don't think so.
At that point, you know, I think we're really back to the 4th and the,
You know, if we don't
Meeting
agreement,
after that.
I'm gonna go with Peter on this. If we don't get agreement on this tonight, we're gonna go back to the 4th to the 17th.
I don't think you can go to the 4th, Tim, right? 4th is no good.
no, I think that's,
Your superintendent won't be here.
the 4th is definitely not good. Isn't that,
Paul, you hear?
What's the day of the Labor Day?
And school is opening up that day. That's really
But-
cool for you to do.
Just be reminded, I can set the dates if I want to.
No agenda.
We'll get the dates back and we'll send out a schedule for it, okay? If you could take a response to Irene's email on this, if you see any problems with those dates, I'd appreciate it, okay? And so we'll try to get this set sometime in the very near future for you.
okay.
Don't we have a kind of a best idea right now?
Yeah, I
What
think the
dates
best
are?
idea is the
Why don't we just go
15th.
ahead and do it?
I think the best idea is.
because
why
nobody
couldn't we get
would
a
second my motion.
I couldn't get a second.
Do I need a second? Would you repeat what you said, Peter?
I move that we have a special meeting, a special executive session meeting on September 5th for purposes of discussing the construction litigation, and that we move our regularly scheduled September meetings to September 10th and September 25th. September 10th is a Monday, September 25th is a Tuesday.
I'd like to second that.
Roll call vote.
No.
Now, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No, I'm going to say no because I already heard Laura say she couldn't make the 5th. And
Opposed?
I don't think that's, I think we could find another date than the 5th for the attorneys' meeting.
So we have 2 noes.
Laura, can you phone in?
Rob, did you vote?
Excuse me?
Yea or nay?
Yeah.
You just want to get out of here.
Yeah. 5-2. I think the motion passes then,
You
doesn't
know,
it, Tim?
if I need to get an update, I'll get an update if you guys can all agree on that date.
Thank you, Laura.
All right, we'll go forward with those dates then.
Yeah, just of the,
Just so the sitting ones
Sitting
here.
board.
The motion's carried.
Would the board consider doing the private session motion for the 5th, and then they wouldn't have to have a public session to that meeting? You could call your executive session this evening by doing the formal resolution.
What do I have to do?
you can make a formal resolution and to have an executive session at this date, at this time.
To
That
discuss
is-
this matter.
That is the motion I made.
That was the motion.
I made a motion that we have a meeting on the 5th, a special meeting.
For executive session?
I thought I said executive session, but if I didn't.
Discuss.
To discuss the construction litigation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did everybody understand that
agree
that
with
was the
that? That's
motion
what I
I
heard.
made?
Sandy, you okay with that?
I heard it.
Pete, you okay with that? You voted against it anyway.
I did too.
Rob, you all right with that? All right, okay. All right, with that, we
Thank
can
you.
move on to the regular items on the agenda. In the A's, A1 through A6, do we have anything to be pulled?
No.
Okay,
And,
on,
are we having any discussion on the policies, or did that moment pass?
I had
No,
to
it
ask,
didn't work.
pardon? I had asked if we had any discussion on it. We could have discussion after we've seconded it, and if you have comments on the policies, that we can collect those. Well, this is the first reading. The process we go through is there's the first reading that simply gets them into on the agenda, basically. You can make comments after that. They have to go through a second reading and be approved before they would become actual policies.
So then, just by voting on them tonight does not make them policy?
It does not make them policy, but it does put us on the path of that. You can make changes to those. If you make minor changes, those minor changes can be incorporated and they can become voted on the second time and become policy. If they're major changes, they don't get to be read the second time, and they would be pulled, and we'd have to redo them, basically. Okay. Now, I do have a change on A3 in that I am going to pull off numbers .01, which is the adoption resolution. That was not a policy, but it was a resolution which was basically going to put into effect that all of our policies now would be on the website, and that would be the official repository for our policies. And any other policies that were, quote, hanging around out there in paper form would no longer be policy of this district. And the reason we're pulling it is because there are about 20 that we want to take a look at that are going to suddenly be pulled. We want to make sure that that's not going to cause us problems. So they're going to be reviewed by the administration to make sure that those policies can be pulled at this point.
Well, here's a quick question. Are these policies just pretty much verbatim taken from some book?
Many of them are pulled, come directly from Strauss Esme. They certainly serve as a starting material. In a number of occasions, Rob, they are then modified and fine-tuned by our administration as well as then by the board members to meet our needs, specific needs here. If you have a comment on one,
I just wanted to ask, hey, Tony, Tony, just, on the one that it bothered me, I mean, it perplexed me, on inappropriate staff conduct, Tony?
What number is that?
3281. And Tom answered one of the questions, but does this clearly, in your mind, state that inappropriate staff conduct is not restricted or limited to school time? Meaning, if a teacher invited a kid out to the movies, or invited the kid to his home, or he went to the other kid's home, for no professional reason, is it clear under this policy that that's prevented?
No.
And Rob, I'd go even further in that my question about it is I read through this a couple times, both as a board member and with my attorney hat on, and inappropriate is an incredibly vague standard.
Right.
I don't know that we're giving any direction to our teachers and that it would help us.
So Tony, is there one that you have that you could, I would assume a zero tolerance, any teacher engaged in any, to Pete's question, really define that. You go to the movies, that's inappropriate, we're going to bring you up on charges, or whatever the process is. Did you have,
You want to just pull this one?
Well, I'd like to pull, but I want to, if Tony has.
I have one that would address all of your issues. I have them that are more restrictive and more direct than this is. In the end, its enforceability would always be a question, but at least you could put the person on notice that certain types of conduct would not be tolerated.
you know, as broad as.
And following up
Yeah.
on Paul's point, I think pulling this one
Let's just
probably
pull
be
this
a
one,
good one.
and we'll come back and
work
discuss
something.
it later on.
Okay, that's my point.
I think that's what you're after, right?
Right.
You have a lot of questions. I noticed Peter has more handwritten notes on it than there are words on the page, so we'll just pull 3281. So we have .01 and 3281 that are being pulled.
And I'll just.
Is there any
Paul, if-
others in that list there that you want to?
I'm not going to go through my specific questions, but I'll just note for the record, Tim, that I do have questions about 2431, which is the athletic competition policy, which I'm going to hand in writing so we can, look at it between now and the second reading. And also about 5460, the graduation requirements. And finally, anybody know what a MAN-2 test is?
Yes.
Yes.
Could you tell me?
Yeah, it's a TB test.
Okay.
Man-2
Then those
is,
are the only two that I have a question about.
Okay. So is there anything else on A1 through A6 that is to be pulled? Just to remind you, we've pulled .01 and 3281. And I've noted that you had comments on 2431 and
I
5460.
don't know if I want to
Laura?
pull, I want to have some comments on 2624, the grading system.
2684.
2624, the grading
I'm sorry,
system.
2624. Do you want to go ahead and first reading? You can get your comments in. That's what we're going to do with the same thing with what Peter had his comments on also.
That's fine.
Okay. If they're major, then we just won't bring it forward for a second reading. Okay, can I get a motion then on A1 through A?
I will move A1 and A2. A3 is amended to not include the adoption resolution .01 and move A4, 5, and 6.
And 3281 is also pulled on.
I'm sorry, yes, with that additional pulling of policy 3281.
Can I get a second on that?
Okay, I'll second it.
Is roll call, is there any money?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely need to vote on this.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yeah.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Mandel?
Yes.
Dr. Yaggett?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
We don't have any B items tonight. Personnel items, we have items C1 through C25. Does anybody have anything that they might want to pull?
I'm going to pull C9 and C14. I'm also going to pull C24 because I have a question that we may have to discuss in executive session.
Okay. So C9 through C9, C14, C24, does anybody else have any they want to pull? Can I get a motion on C1 through C25 with those three items being pulled?
I'll move C1 through C8, C10 through C13, C15 through C23, and C25.
Can I get a second on that?
Of course.
Any discussion?
It's my rule.
Any
That's what I'm
discussion?
here for.
Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano? Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Dr. Yaggett?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Finance, the D items. We have D1 through D20. We have a revised D7, which is in the packet that you got tonight. And we have an addition of a D21. Does everybody have the revised D7?
Yes.
Does everybody have D21?
Yes.
Rob, this is
Tony
actually
one.
a point that you brought up earlier tonight about food prices. Okay?
We have the attachment?
Yes, it's in the,
It was
And
It'll be in the
It
packet.
was in
folder,
tonight's.
Sandy.
that's D3, attachment, the lease agreement, and then the BG is the from the compounding and food.
Anybody want to
Does
pull
anybody want to pull anything? I'm trying.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
18, 19, and 21.
Hold on now.
19.
18, 19, and
21.
21.
I mean, do you want me? I mean, 18, 19. They're they're very minor, I think they're minor things. You want me to tell
Can
you
we give-
what?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
You want me to tell you
Do you
why?
want to just, do you want to pull them, or do you want to discuss?
Yeah, I mean, 21, I'd like to leave that aside for a second, but 18 and 19, Tim?
Yes.
The questions, there were two questions, and they really pertain to both of them. One, I was a little concerned that it appears in the contracts that either the German school or the Chinese school, they have the right to use not only just our facilities, but to use things like telephones, copy machines, supplies, because there's no restrictions on that. Matter of fact, it alluded to the fact that they could use our copy machines. So, you know, theoretically, or the reality of it is, I mean, it could be hundreds of dollars of copying charges, telephone charges, so on and so forth. And also, what I wanted, there's an insurance requirement, and I would appreciate your speaking to Bank of America, which is our insurance representatives, and at least having them take a look at the language to make sure that the issues of insurance compliance, that they're in agreement with, whether or not I'm not suggesting it's not satisfactory, but I would like our insurance people to take a look at it to make sure that the coverages, you know, I mean, we have significant usage by these two schools, particularly the Chinese school, that, you know, the district's protected from insurance point of view.
Somebody have an answer to those questions?
I don't have an answer for the Commerce Review. I mean, I have to give that to them to have them
No, I
review
understand.
that.
How about
No,
the
it's Bank of
copiers
America.
on the
It's
phone?
Bank of America, not Commerce.
I'm sorry, Bank of America. Commerce is our bank.
Yeah, I know that.
How about the issue or question you brought up with regard to copiers?
Well,
And telephones?
Whatever. There's, a matter of fact, they allude to the fact that I believe they can use the copiers in other.
Is it is?
As far as I know, I mean, I'm not, quite frankly, I don't know how much they use it. I'm very out of the loop on exactly how much usage they do for the copy machines, the telephones. I mean, from what I understand, by and large, they operate pretty much a school during Saturdays, during the school year.
Right.
I did start negotiating these leases when I was here, and we attempted this year to start putting restrictions on the leases. In the past, most of your leasers would come in and rent 6 rooms in a building and then use 10. And that was a problem with both of these users. So we tried to stay with the same contract as last year. Let's start adding room charges for the gyms in particular, which they all used free of charge. So we didn't really try to restrict too much more of the lease that you had in effect, but I think it should be a continuing review, and every year you should start tightening down on these leases.
Well, I mean, the language says, to the extent, and this is the paragraph 4E, equipment, to the extent equipment, including but not limited to copiers, mats and gym, etc., the landlord shall permit the tenant to use said equipment. I mean, they can use our, you know, computers. They can use, you know, obviously telephones. Well, I mean, I understand gym equipment. There's no cost. I mean, it's there, you know, and if they break it, they fix it.
Okay.
I mean, that's possible. But I'm just saying, it's things that are consumables, chargeables, you know, telephones, all these. I think it should be, you don't use it, you know, and if you do, there'll be, you know, a charge at 5 cents a copy, 10 cents a minute, or whatever. Or ask them what they intend to use. I mean, to me, it's an open-ended invitation to use lots and lots of facilities. I mean, you know, in terms of photocopying, I mean, I don't know, we pay 3, 4, 5 cents a page. Thousands and thousands of pages could add thousands of dollars over the course of a year.
Do you want to propose that we change the resolution?
I just think that, you know, to me, Tim should go back and tighten it up with the two schools.
Okay, so do you want to suggest actually as part of the resolution that we modify it so that we restrict the use of the equipment? We provide certain guidance with regard to restriction of the use of the equipment.
You know, subject to a business administrator.
Before you do that, may I question that? Every time I've seen them use it, they always need a code to get in every machine I've seen them use. Maybe there are machines here that are available, but aren't they coded?
That's changed, right?
Tom could probably give us the best response. I know he's been concerned with the use of the building by outsiders. But Tom, do they have the ability to use your copy machines? I know they use your phones.
Good question, I don't know, I'd have to.
They have the right to use it, whether or not there's a code or
I do know
not.
the answer to that.
Laura?
When we got new copy machines, I guess it was 2 years ago, prior to that, you did need a code to get in to use the copy machines. And since I think we have the new machines, you don't need a code, or it hasn't been programmed, as far as, to my knowledge. But I mean, a simple way of dealing with that, if we do not want them to use that, is to have the paper locked up, and I mean, I don't know how much more the toner and I know it's a broader issue.
No, I'm just saying that there should be enumerated, if they want to use it, fine. It's, we designate a machine and charges and let Tim
But if the
figure
paper,
it out.
if the paper is out over the weekend, then it's handy and free, and
Let me just make one suggestion, and maybe this makes sense to people. Maybe the thing to do is to provide, rather than unlimited, that we have some reasonable allowance in here, and if that's exceeded, that there'll be a charge to them for it. I'm looking at it from the point of view, Rob, that as Dr. Rader has said, we've grabbed back in the cost for the gyms, and so we're going to make them pay that, and they should be paying that. And I'm just suggesting that while the copying is an issue, maybe we ease our way into that by having an allowance.
Peter, when someone rents,
but I don't even know if it can be done technologically.
Peter, when someone rents a facility, classrooms at colleges, universities, I'm renting a facility. Doesn't mean that I'm renting a facility and that I have the right to run up phone charges, computer charges, copier charges, and I mean, according to this, they could run up $50,000 in those charges, and they'd be perfectly within their legal rights to do so.
That's Peter's suggestion, which is to put a restriction.
You're absolutely right about that.
I don't even think a cap. I just think if you want to use it from day one, they're renting the facilities. They're renting our space. They're not renting photocopy machines. They're not renting telephones. They're not renting computers.
In truth, Rob, even though we may not have realized it, they have been renting exactly those things. They have been renting those services because I presume that in years past, the leases we gave them allowed them to do these things. And I take your point that we've got to change it, and I'm just suggesting a transition to the change.
Is this the same lease that we had in the past?
It's very similar language that we had in the past. The only real changes were the fact that we're adding cost on to the gyms.
Bernie?
So they did have that.
I would like to suggest that where we can charge usage, we just do it. There's no cap. You don't wait till next year. That's where you can monitor it and establish
where we can charge
reasonable
usage.
cost. Because if they go somewhere else, they have to pay 5 cents a copy anyway, or they do it at home for 8 cents a copy. It's really a fairness thing.
And it puts it back to us. And I agree with Bernie's suggestion.
To the board, but I mean, Bob probably handled this more than I did, but those suggestions, if you want to charge per copy usage or for phone usage, I don't see that as an issue.
We would actually welcome that direction from the board. Our struggle was not to make the contract so different that we alienated the user. But if it comes from the board, it's very easy for us.
I would have a hard time believing that these schools believe that they had an open-ended right to use every imaginable copiers, telephones without any charge or limitation. I mean, they're renting space.
And I don't think they did believe that too either, Rob. I think they've probably been reasonable about it. You're suggesting that. I think we should.
We don't know that, Peter.
You're right.
Problem. So we don't know.
I don't know that. So let's go ahead and say
the Chinese school is 300-400 kids. I mean, every weekend there could be thousands of pages running off.
Do we want to direct in? We want to revise D18 and D19 so that they read something along the lines of to change the wording in the contract so that usage of the equipment will be paid for by the renters.
Usage of the things that we can technologically charge for.
Well, right,
and
you have to monitor
allow
it.
Tim then the leverage and the flexibility to figure out how to do that.
I'd like to also put a couple other thoughts in here. As they look at hours of operation, they can't come in before 6:30, but they can come in at 6:30. We don't limit them to the number of hours per day and the time of day. If they chose, we normally, and this is the reason for the low cost, is that the building is open and there's work going on, there's things being done on Saturday. But if they chose to come in and stay here until 10:30, we're normally gone by then, which would mean we'd be paying extended overtime for our custodians to be here, for them to operate on an unlimited amount of time on any given day. It doesn't say that we have the right to say, you have to be gone by 3. It just says they have an open invitation from 10 to 12, or
Okay,
6:30 to 10.
do we want to make a promotion? Do we want to revise these contracts then also?
Yes.
In the motion, do that, so that we restrict the hours of operation.
And the other thing is,
One thing. Is that, because we can do that.
I don't think you have to change the motions. I think you're talking about contractual.
We're going to provide you a
terms of the
direction to make
contract.
those changes in the contract, yeah.
right.
Go ahead, Peter.
The other part is, if they
I'm
have.
I'm sorry, I had a question about the last one. I guess when we give that direction, Peter, to Tim,
Yeah, fine.
I'm not sure what direction we are giving Tim. Right now, it says 6:30 to 10. What are we telling Tim to do? Are we talking about changing it to a specific hour? If we are, why are we picking that specific hour? Are we changing it to the concept of where it's going to incur additional cost?
Well,
They
the
can have it if
reality of it is-
they pay the additional cost?
The reality is, it's an open-ended time thing, and I don't think that's fair to us,
I
number
agree.
one. No, and so with that, should we have a certain school day? And if it goes beyond that school day, then when our custodians would normally leave, they pick up the cost.
I think we do have that, but it
Doesn't
show.
say.
Well,
No,
but we do
why,
have,
but why do you have that?
Wait, let- Can Bob just tell us
Wait,
if
to
we
his
have
point,
it?
no, I'm looking at it says hours of operation. Why do you have tenant shall provide the landlord with a schedule but such program may not be conducted prior to 6:30 or 10 p.m. And then it says, at the commencement of the lease, tenants' classes will be 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m.
right. And
I
we
mean-
do have a schedule from them. I think maybe the contract was to give them overall guidance. The schedule determined their rental rate. So I think we addressed your issue about if they're scheduling beyond when custodians are on straight time.
But it doesn't say that.
Well, it does say they will provide us with a schedule of hours in which
Right.
they will conduct
But
their
and
program.
also, it doesn't say that they can't change their schedule without our approval. Today, I want to come in from 6:30 in the morning till 12:30 at night. Well, fine. They don't have to tell us.
Well,
They're just going to stay.
We have told them that they cannot deviate from their schedule without approval from this office.
And-
But when they
and
go
Bob,
to
what-
contract, it doesn't say that.
And what happens then, like, for example, Chinese New Year, when they do deviate and they do come in the morning and have festivities that go on till 7 o'clock at night, do we charge them?
Yes,
We
that
do-
is
we
in
do
their schedule.
Currently.
And we both restricted and charged for them this year.
Okay,
In
so-
past years, I can't tell you that was,
But for this past year, under the lease we had for this prior year, when they wanted to go outside that schedule, we charged them for the additional costs that we incurred?
yes, but to give you a full answer, in practice, it broke down this year because the custodial crew responded to the Chinese school.
Right.
It changes next year, the custodial crew responds to administration.
Okay.
And they are not allowed to leave the tenant in the building before their scheduled hours or in rooms that are not scheduled in their renter agreement.
Then
That's where it
do
broke
we
down.
need a change? And I fully agree with what Pete is suggesting, that we make sure that we get paid for times when they go outside that basic schedule that we've agreed to. Do we need to change the contract to do that, or do we already have the ability to charge for it in the contract?
We already have the ability to charge for it, and that was indeed a method to get them to change their scheduling. I mean, their use of gyms was cut in half for next year, because now we tell them you're gonna pay for that gym.
And Pete, I fully agree with you that
I
they
do
should be
too.
charged for it. My question is only whether or not we have to change this contract
I
anymore.
just
to
bring it
charge
up,
for it.
I'm sure it'll get handled and straightened out. The other part of this same idea is, if they stay to 12:30, and there's cleanup to be done, then our custodians are gonna stay until 1:30 or 2:30.
Yeah, we have that built into the rental agreements, that they must leave at their time, and we have custodial cleanup time, not only for these
Okay.
two users, but any user.
Okay.
So we've already built in that
We
into our
built that
contract.
into the rate
Okay.
fee. And I need to tell you, it's new this year. We have to make sure our custodial crew responds to our directives, because I think in the past, everybody treated our crew very well on the holidays, and they would open up any room, and you really have to cut that out, because it can be
Bob,
troublesome.
on paragraph 7, why can't we get rid of the first sentence?
Which,
It would be for both leases, either one. It says hours of operation.
I think you could.
And then.
No, wait, not the whole first
No,
sentence.
no,
You still want them
from
to
the
provide
but.
us with their schedule.
No, no, tenant shall provide with a schedule, I understand, but it's saying,
Between 6
you know,
and 10.
but
Yeah, just-
it's a commensurate lease. Tenants' classes will be 8:30 to 12:30, and if there are times that they, you know, need to start earlier or finish later, there'll be a charge of, I don't know, $50 an hour.
So strike that
before or
first
after.
sentence after the word "but."
Yes.
All right.
And
All right,
then,
we're in the contract.
then Tim,
Yes.
and then maybe just prepare a schedule of additional services, use of equipment, and then delineate it.
Okay, we have, can we agree that on D18 and D19 then to be modified or to provide Tim with direction as we discussed here, specifically with regard to a schedule of cost of the equipment and the striking of that part of the sentence? You know,
In
under
paragraph 7.
7,
And
everything
4A,
after the word but.
and you're adding something on 4A about the charging of use of equipment?
Yeah, something on the equipment, it's
I
scheduled
just
charges.
want to pin down, it's paragraph 4A,
Yes, thank you.
Oh, it's in 4A, I see what you're saying, Bernie.
not a 4A into the future.
That's actually my wife's maiden name also. It's French. Okay, so, okay, are we clear on D18 and D19? We now have, can I then get
Everything
a,
except D21.
can I get a
I
now
will
a motion
move
for?
D1 through D17, D18, and D19 as amended, D20.
Not D21.
Correct.
Okay, can I get a roll call vote on those?
You need a second.
Oh, I'm trying to get these done quickly. Can I get a second on those?
Second.
Discussions on those items? I thought that you also carried the second. Can I get a roll call vote?
Yeah, in a second.
After you know what the motion is.
I got papers coming from the left to the right.
Yeah.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yeah.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Gone.
Gone. Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Not, well, I think she come back.
She's temporarily on.
She's gonna go.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes. Now that's a
Motion carries.
motion carried. All right.
Paul, do we have any comment on, is there anything on these handwritten checks? Is that on the agenda to ask a question?
I think we just went by,
Just voted on it.
I think we just voted on that.
All these.
Did you have a question on the handwritten check?
Yeah,
Can I
just
ask
two
you-
quick.
can I ask
I
you-
mean, you want what?
Can you just ask Tim offline here? Can we do it that way?
Have these been paid? What's this handwriting?
Well, that's for the board to, yeah, they're,
No, I mean, it's a
They're-
post-approval, but they've been paid, right?
right, they're hand checks, right. That's correct.
Can I just say something real fast, okay? The two that, it would have been done already. On the Walentz payment of $29,000 and Zegas at $50,000, who reviewed the appropriateness of those payments?
Let's check.
Walentz is $29,000 for some bond-related work. Remember, there was some refinancing. Did anyone look at that bill?
That was definitely looked at.
By who?
I don't know whether it was.
I reviewed
quite
it
frankly,
when I was here, and all of the charges that
They were
billed-
outlined in the resolution
They
when we
were
approved
approved by
that
the board, that's
financing.
correct.
I even remember the amount, truthfully.
What?
Of the amount of the attorney's fees. I had raised the question.
Did you look at them? Did someone look at them?
I didn't see the bill. I saw the amount
resolution.
was, the amount was discussed of how much they were getting paid, because I was outraged by it.
You were, at the
when
meeting.
When we
the
approved
last
the
meeting?
finance. No, a couple
this was
meetings,
a long time
several
ago.
meetings back.
You looked at them,
And
Bob?
all invoices are,
And Zegas, you looked at his 50,000, that he's the
That's a
lawyer for
different question.
Tramarko?
That's a different question.
I did not look at that.
no, that's all purchase orders and invoices are reviewed before they're put on the bill list. And I know that one I know I did look at that.
The Zegas bill?
Yeah, that was a, that's what.
Is Tramarco's
That's
lawyer.
the indemnification issue.
Right. I mean, all these things have to be looked at. I mean, if you would like to look at them, you can
Let
certainly.
me just ask, they've been paid, correct?
Yes.
So whether or not checks out the door, checks cash,
Zegas'
this.
bill has been paid?
With Zigas, we also
about-
have
I don't know about
board
cash.
council review.
I'm not aware that it's been paid. I'm aware that it's been reviewed, I'm aware that it was recommended it be sent to our insurance carrier, but I'm not aware that it's been paid.
No, it's, that we don't, no, these, that particular, is that the one with the,
Tony reviewed the
Tramarco.
charges. the
I
second
resent,
time.
yeah, and we agreed.
no, that one has not been released. That I know.
And Tony, that's been reviewed
Yes.
for the appropriateness of the charges?
The hourly rate is inappropriate, the charges are not.
That has not been released.
Okay, so you know what, we'll
That I
discuss that
know.
one offline, okay?
I'll
It hasn't been
take it
paid, so
offline now.
we'll.
That's what you want.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I'm sorry, Paul, just, I know, what is the Watchung Hill share of the settlement that we just approved on diploma joint?
That's a,
Say that again? I didn't hear.
What number?
We're paying diploma
insurance
joint
on diploma.
$28,047 for the Watchung Hill share of a settlement.
Okay, what's happened there is that, and it's gonna be a long answer to a very short, simple problem. In the year 2000, the insurance company that that they purchased the insurance from, Diploma Joint Insurance from, the company that they purchased the insurance from, went into bankruptcy. So they're holding
Okay,
on
so-
money.
all right.
Okay, so what we've done is we've settled the cases. The appropriate percentage obligation that belongs to Watchung Hills Regional Board of Education is a $28,000 obligation.
Okay.
We're under a court order to pay the settlement. What the Board of Trustees, all the board members of the Board of Education decided of the Diploma Joint Insurance Fund, and remember, every business administrator, was to pay this settlement. Claims already been made through bankruptcy. We know the money's there. It's just not gonna get here in time to pay this settlement and resolve this case. And so what the Board of Trustees has asked that if every board could come up with its share and wait then for the reimbursement through the bankruptcy proceeding, that would be the more appropriate way of doing it. The litigation, the bankruptcy proceeding has already moved to liquidation. So they are now liquidating the funds. We have a claim in there, and our claim's already been filed, and it's being handled by the insurance brokers who handle the Diploma Joint Insurance Fund. It's a very long answer to tell you that at some point you're gonna get $28,000
Okay.
back, dollar for dollar. It's just not gonna be in the next 3 or 4 months.
Thank you.
Probably gonna be closer to the spring.
I would like to add that the reason it was a hand check is it came in at the end of the school year. We wanted to pay for it out of the 06-07
And that
money.
was, yeah, the
And we had attorney recommendation to go ahead and pay it. so.
And these are for claims that are like 6, 7 years
One,
old?
no, I need to tell you that this is one significantly large death of a student claim.
Many years ago?
In 2000, a student died after school in the gym of a heart attack.
Not here,
Not here.
somewhere else.
One of our constituent member districts. Case has been resolved.
Okay.
Settlement will be placed
Okay.
on the record.
This is like everyone's chipping in.
Yeah,
It was a member
yeah.
of this association.
Yeah, right.
Claim
Correct.
was more
This
than
is
our $28,000. It could have been hundreds of thousands of
Oh,
dollars.
the case settled for $700,000.
So it's like
You're-
60 districts are kicking in 20.
40-something districts.
I understand. We're part of a pool?
$1,000. Yours is a $28,000.
We're part of a pool, right?
Correct.
Like a cooperative?
You got it.
Okay.
That's it.
Rob, you'd asked us to pull D21, which had to do with
Pontonian.
Pontonian food. Do you want to come back and discuss that? Do you want
Yeah, let me
this
just
to be
say,
not voted on at all?
what I'd like to ask Tim, I'd like to set up under the Finance Committee, I'd like to set up a meeting with Pontonian to discuss not only the menu, to see, if we, there are a couple of price increases, whether they think the appropriateness of additional price increases to and also the other issues that we talked about, food selection, this and that, and so what I'd like to do, Tim, is have that meeting maybe next week, and then what we can do is report back to the board at the next meeting with any proposals or recommendations that the whole board could vote on.
There probably gonna need this before then, is my.
Yeah, well, if our next meeting-
2007, 2008, our next meeting's the 10th. so they're
If our
already
next
gonna
meeting's the
start.
10th,
Do they need,
Could we change we can go in the middle of the year and say, we want this changed. I mean, we're not locked into this for the whole year.
no, you can change that.
that's a good point,
Is this-
Bernie.
is
So
this
maybe
our
we,
menu?
if we
Is this
voted
our-
to approve,
is this our-
first of all,
is
does the
this our
board
menu
have to
next
approve a
year?
menu change?
Yeah, basically what they're doing, yeah, there are changes in there. There's handwritten notes.
No,
There
but
are
do we have to
price
approve them,
increases.
Bob?
But you need to, well, let me explain some of the changes that they made. Some of the items they're taking out are to comply specifically with the new law on nutrition. So some of those things we have to take off our menu. The price increases, and maybe in some cases reductions, that's suggestions that they're making.
That's why,
So your question is, do we
does
really
a
need to
board,
approve- do we need
does
to
a board
approve
have to
these?
approve
Do we need to
menu
approve these?
changes?
If
Bob?
you don't approve,
No, can
if
you do it
don't
without
approve
us
the changes,
approving?
if you don't approve those changes, you go back to the prior year.
Yeah, I
you
think
know,
under
what
the
they have on.
contract, they have to.
Yeah.
That schedule without the handwritten changes is what is
So-
currently approved by the board.
Should we just approve these for September?
Yes,
I
but
would
Tony,
like-
I was trying to ask a question. As a board, do we have to vote on changes to a menu? I mean, is this?
Because of the contract.
Price
with
list.
Tom.
This is a price list.
We do have to vote on the price.
You're voting
We'll
on
have
a
to
price
approve
list.
that.
Okay, so to get this rolling, vote on it now. Next week, I'd like to
I would like to direct this to the finance committee for you.
do that, and then we can report back at the next meeting if there are subsequent changes. That sound
Laura,
okay?
you
I
have-
I-
Laura
I
had a
have some
question.
discussion
Laura had a
issues
question.
on,
Comment.
We're
and
going to
I-
add D21 onto the.
We're gonna come back to D21, hold on.
Okay.
But Laura has a question.
Okay, yeah, I mean, this is our menu with Pomptonian? This
That's
is-
correct.
So, for example, like, under sandwiches, there's no vegetarian sandwich unless you want a cheese sandwich. You know, there's no, like, vegetables unless you want a salad, you know? I don't, I mean, I know it's late in the game, you know, but I think those are things to be looking at.
Can I
No, well, this
suggest
is-
that?
Laura will
This is
include
the
that. Whatever-
price list
How about
that
this,
we're-
Laura? Whatever
When you
you
have a
think is
meeting-
lacking, can just send me an email.
Absolutely,
And I'll meet with Bob,
absolutely.
Tim and Bob, and/or Bob, and go over that to include with Pomptonian. And for the next meeting, we could have not only maybe pricing suggestions, but some other suggestions. I assume we've gotten rid, have we been mandated to get rid of, I don't want to belabor this,
Yeah, it's
trans
a New
fatty
Jersey law.
acids?
Oh,
No.
No, not
but
trans fatty,
that's
but
the
sugar.
least we
Thank God.
should.
But we have eliminated trans fat acids,
Thank you.
oils.
Trans fat acids.
I'm sorry. We've eliminated the cafeteria, and we're all using a state-approved oil.
How
Of
much
course,
more
you
is
know,
that
by
costing
throwing in
us?
chicken
It's
nuggets,
included in the
by throwing in
contract
chicken
by
nuggets,
state
it becomes trans fat acids anyway.
Can we,
But I wanted to make a comment based on what you talked about with the finance committee, with food being half the price. I don't want that to in any way then make us downgrade our quality of food. You know, that to me is
We
a
just serve
key
bologna
thing.
sandwiches. I think we're seeing
Yeah,
if there's
just peanut butter and jelly for
seeing if
everybody.
there's some northern exposure we can do on pricing.
so, can I get a motion on the D21 for the month of September only?
I will move that we approve the price list, Pomptonian and
And
move
product
action,
selection.
Just a price list.
Resolve the Board of Education, I'm going to take D21 that exists on the pink sheet and just change it to, for the 2007, 2008 school year, for September 2007 as per the attachment.
Can I get a second on that?
Yes.
Discussion on that? I just have one point. On discussion on that, I just have one point. That is, Rob, when you get together with Tim to go, and Pomptonian to go through that, why don't you get Laura there?
I just asked her, she's the email,
I
we'll
just wanna make sure
do
we
it
get
together.
that. Well, more than an email, she can always do that.
No, that's what I said.
Roll call vote?
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes.
Beckner? Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Mandel?
Laura, you want to vote?
Through September,
Oh, this through September?
not permanently, but at least just through September, till we have a chance
Price
to meet
list.
with them to include new menu items and
Not the menu, the price list.
Abstain,
Pricing.
abstain.
Okay. Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
And Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Any other business at this point in time? No, with that, second opportunity for public comment. Your comment?
Howard Breakdown, watch on this. About the food service, I know the end of last year there was some concern about quality of food. My son's asked me to make lunch for him for the coming year. So if that's any indication of improvement, there hasn't been any. I'm sure a lot of other parents won't because it's a lot of work, but I think the quality of the food, not its preparation, but like the grease and the high carb levels and stuff really aren't in fitting with what we've heard tonight about the obesity problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Did you get his name?
No, I don't.
Howard, can you give him the name, full name and address? I don't know your address.
got it.
I know your name.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll get to
Any
know you,
other-
Howard.
Rob's pointing out that after I pulled C9 and C14.
We never got back to it.
We didn't go back to
Right,
them. I would just say to the rest of the board, C9 pulls or rescinds the motion we passed in July, appointing a particular new teacher at step 4 on a guide. And C14, the other one, appoints that same teacher at step 5 on the appropriate guide. I called Tim and asked a question about it today because if you look at her resume, which is included in your packet, it looks to me like step 4 is the appropriate step. That's where we put her in September. I was told that it's a mistake. She should be at C5, at step 5. I still don't understand. I don't know that I'll understand until Fran gets here to tell us why she should be at C5, or step 5 rather. But if you want to vote on C9 and C14, I'm just going to vote against them.
I have a motion on
Wait,
C9.
Tom has something to add.
Okay, I believe that was based on her 2 years in the Peace Corps that were counted.
Well,
I think, and we can wait, of course, until Fran, but
Let's wait.
I believe, but this young lady, just so you know, this young lady starts teaching with us in 2 weeks.
I know, but if I pulled C9, we haven't rescinded her appointment on step 4.
Should just be paid on a different level.
Right. That's why I pulled C9.
Yeah, I think it was the Peace Corps thing.
So we're going to hold on C9 and C14. They remain pulled. How about C24? I had forgotten about that one also. You pulled that one.
Tony, and I don't know whether you have an answer to that. I asked Tim the question about the substitute bus driver that we're appointing at a particular rate, and I just didn't know why that was the rate at which we were appointing that bus driver.
It seems to be C24, right?
Yes.
The rate seems to be higher than the rate that I recall.
That was the
21
reason for my question.
I thought they started at 21.
Yeah.
To move into executive session for the purposes of confidential matters that are governed by current attorney-client privilege.
So moved.
Possible litigation and contract.
Second.
Possible litigation
Good
and
girl.
contract.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? No nays. Motion carries. While we take a 5-minute recess.